Shut up, fool!
Hey, man! This makes sense!
You can't help but smile at your age.
Yeah, that's really bad. That's really, really bad. To me, this was flagrant.
You love those little snippets, right?
It's just the John Maddox one that I find especially funny. Yeah, but I really like it.
I wonder if he's seen it.
I guess he might have, but I've not heard from him in a while. Is he still making videos?
I don't know. I think he's alive.
Just about.
We got 63 people here. We can get going.
We're not on the screen now.
Okay, enough with the music. Okay. So what gives you joy and happiness nowadays, Nathan? Your abs?
Quite like going to the gym. Yeah, my abs.
How are they looking?
I've got they've been coming through for a week or so now, but they're still the kind of around the hips, you know, like that bit of fat is still kind of coming off at the minute. But
you know what I've been doing?
But yeah,
I've been, in addition to my dieting, I've been going out in the Arizona sun every morning and poolside, and I take my shirt off, and I'm getting my tan on.
I see.
Because part of having good abs is having dark abs.
Right, is the tan.
Yeah.
How's the 1,000 calories every day going though? Like, you're not getting a bit.
Monday through Thursday, I'm very strict. Friday, I allow myself to have a few bites of my kids' desserts. But I'm still, no matter what, I'm in a caloric deficit. So I'm always under 2,000 calories, and I burn probably 2,000 a day just sleeping, or just doing walking about. So I think I'm doing okay. I'm 180. I've lost 18 pounds. How many pounds have you lost, or kilos?
I've probably about 11 or 12 or something since we started.
Oh wow!
Because before we started, I probably about a month before that I'd started dieting, but not as heavily as since we started. I cut a few more of my calories out. So overall, I've lost a little bit more weight than that. But yeah, since we've started, probably somewhere.
What weight did you start
in
at?
The region of. When we started, I started at 95 kilograms, but around Christmas this year, I was like 104 to 110 kilograms. So.
Oh wow! So when we started, you've lost more weight than me.
Since Christmas, but not since we started, I don't think. So I was 95 kilos when we started, and now, like today, I was about 89 kilos. So that's about like 12 pounds.
Oh, okay, good. So I am beating you. Yes.
In weight.
In weight. And we're about the same height, right? It's 5'10".
Yeah, about the same height.
Yeah. Okay, so this is a good competition. And I see Joshua's in the chat. Joshua, what happened to your channel?
Some of the Catholics I don't know if you saw on Twitter, like Trent Horn and some others as well, were sort of having a go at him about how he was being with people on Discord, and I think that after that, Josh deleted his channel.
Josh, you freely deleted your own channel because of what your fellow Catholics are saying? Interesting. I should delete my channel then for what some atheists say about me. What's your opinion on, have you seen Bill Maher's take on the transgender issue and Ricky Gervais's recently thing on Netflix?
I've seen some of his special, though I can't remember what the joke was that he made, to be honest. So I'm not going to have like a good hot take. But yeah, I mean, I think there's people with more and less informed views on these things, and I think there's people on both sides whose views are, primarily informed by prejudice rather than, them having like really good things to say about the transgender issue.
Yeah. Well, it's definitely pretty funny if you haven't seen it.
Have you've watched the whole?
No, not the
special?
whole thing, just a few clips. But yeah, he comes out of the gate swinging pretty hard. I remember you, Wild Heart. You're from the UK, right?
Oh, yes. Yeah. I'm the drunk Irish guy who's not Irish.
Yeah. And you seem like you're always drunk or something.
Yeah, a lot of the time, yeah.
Are you an alcoholic?
I am an alcoholic. Yeah.
Okay.
Recovering though. I'm cussing down.
Hey, Deepak, what are you doing? Okay, he's fixing things. Do you have any desire to stop being an alcoholic?
Yeah, I'm working on it. I'm waiting to go into rehab.
Oh, good for you.
It takes a long time. Yeah.
Because this is what part of the PineCreek channel is all about. Like, we're helping people lose weight, stop alcohol abuse.
Yeah.
We're helping East Indians with their social skills.
Coding.
Deepak immediately goes undercover when I say that. Oh yeah, and you're smoking too. But nicotine's good for you to stop COVID.
Oh yeah.
I hear.
That's not going to stop anytime soon. No.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how we were in Rebecca's, by the way. You were very good.
Oh, thank you.
Enjoy.
What did you like?
I was actually in just before you joined.
What did you like about
I want to
Rebecca's?
see Deepak's bookshelf.
Sorry?
What did you like about Rebecca's stream?
It was, there were a lot of different topics covered, I thought. Yeah. The beginning was good. She read the first 5 books of something. I'm not good on the Bible.
Well, let me ask you a question,
yeah.
Wild Heart. Do you think it's worth even
Yeah.
talking to people like Otangelo and Rebecca?
Artangelo, no. Rebecca, yes. That's it.
And why do you say yes for Rebecca?
I like her. I think she's honest. I don't think Artangelo is honest, to be honest. Yeah, that's the difference.
Super intelligence. Are you trying to up your IQ, Deepak?
I need it. No, Nathan was asking me in the chat what books do I have or something. So I just picked up whatever's around.
Because you don't have the bookshelf facing. You're not doing the posture. It's not that in the background.
Yeah. No. I'm very humble that way. And as you can see, I don't have any books.
So Deepak, when you said to Rebecca that you're provisionally accepting Jesus or something like that, and she started cheering.
Yeah.
What?
I don't think she understood what I meant, right?
Well, I think I understood what she thought you were saying, that you accepted Christ into your heart, sort of thing. But why do you think she was cheering?
Because, like she said after that, right? She's like, she thinks I'm closer to actually, just the fact that I could say that meant I was closer to actually accepting him for real. Right? I think that's.
I know,
that's
but what do you think she would say is the reason that any of that should be celebrated? That even you're closer.
Oh, so that I accept God and I get to go to heaven, right? I accept Jesus, and
yeah, exactly right.
She wants more people to do that, right?
It's all about heaven or hell.
It's all about that.
Isn't she a universalist?
Yeah, she is. She's not. I think she believes that you and I will be annihilated in Wild Heart, and Deepak if he's faking it.
Oh, okay.
No, but like actually, I wanted to ask her, right? Like, why is that so different from the Muslim, right? Like, the Muslim doesn't believe everything that's true. He believes some things, and I kind of conditionally believe it. I'm like, if it's true, then I accept him. Like, what's wrong with that, right?
Yeah.
Like, why is like
Conditionals with a false antecedent are necessarily true, Deepak.
I think the problem is you have to believe it without knowing whether it's true or not.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I get punished for it. Yeah.
Yeah, but she thought you meant that you're just a sort of like a weak belief. That's what she took it as. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that's what you meant. Yeah.
But all these discussions about morality and evolution and the Bible, like, the older I get, the more I think it's just a waste of time.
What your goals are, right, and what you're trying to do. I think that maybe for you it is at that point, but for a lot of other people, especially in the YouTube space, if you're trying to, if you're a Christian apologist or if you're an atheist and you're trying to brand yourself as someone who has something plausible to say about these things, and like build up a public profile of someone who engages in discussions in this way, then it might be worthwhile. But I think you've kind of just gone like I don't care about all that. I'm just gonna have fun and chill out.
Well, Nathan, you said it right before when we were talking about the problem of evil, that you think it fails because it's not persuasive, and the real issue is, well, what is? And the thing is, like, I think what would...
Well, I think you've got a few good arguments, actually, in that. I would say that there aren't really any good arguments, right, in philosophy. But I do think things like the flying man I would consider good arguments, because I think they tend to actually persuade a lot of people. And
yeah, maybe.
Can I ask why the problem of evil is not convincing? Because it's...
Well, to the Christian...
Like,
well, I'm not...
Go ahead, Nathan, you go ahead.
Well, that's all I was going to say is, I mean, I believe the problem of evil, right? Like, I think that the characterization of God in the problem of evil, the linking claim that if that God existed, then you wouldn't expect to see that datum, and the datum, like either pain or suffering or imperfection, whatever. I think all those things are right together, but I don't believe in that God's existence. The problem is that for someone who does, pretty much every time you're gonna present them with this argument, and then if they haven't already thought about it, they're gonna go, okay, that's a bit weird. And then they'll read some book that says, planting is free will defense, some theodicy, and they'll just come back to you with that. And they'll say, well, look, I've got this theodicy, I've got this defense. I don't accept the conclusion. And I think that they're all right to do that. I mean, we do the same with the kalam or the contingency argument or whatever. It's a question of like, so then how should we actually be like engaging in these conversations if our goal is to compel people to change their mind about whether or not God exists? And I don't think it's by giving them that argument.
But actually,
so it's a bad argument just because it doesn't convince people, not because there's anything wrong with the actual argument.
Well, because the point of an argument is, the point of an argument is to persuade, a person to the truth of the conclusion. I'm saying it doesn't do that.
So I actually feel like the problem of evil is usually the most persuasive argument you can make to most Christians, right? Like, and the reason I say this is because like many people, like for example Bart Ehrman and so on, right? They say the reason they turned finally away from Christianity is because of the problem.
That's the evidential problem.
I think, nothing really works well, but it seems to be the best. And I actually have a theory about that. So my theory is that I don't think, like, in terms of logic, like you can always find like some free will, this or some reason or the other to justify, to like resolve all the tensions. But the reason most people stick with Christianity or religion in general is because they're trying to solve a problem of evil, right? They're trying to like make sense of like a universe that is unjust and unfair. So they want a God that can make everything right. And then the problem of evil like really forces them to like confront the fact that it doesn't solve anything, right? Like Christianity, at least, doesn't solve any real problem. So then rather than like making a positive argument, what it does is it takes away like the argument from goodness that most Christians think they have.
Hey, Brand and Midnight, show your faces, please.
Oh, me? Okay, I'm
You don't have to, but if you don't, I'll probably boot you.
Okay, sorry.
Well, my cat. Hold on a sec.
This is me.
I know Midnight. He's alright.
Okay. What did you want to say, Brandon?
And Doug kind of knows me a little.
Yeah, I know you a little. What do you want to say, Brandon? I like your name.
Yeah, I don't know. It seems like for atheists and the religious, it goes around in circles, even within the Christian communities themselves, because even they can't agree on which doctrine is correct.
Yeah, it definitely does go in circles.
I mean, that doesn't necessarily mean it's pointless, but it just goes around in circles.
Yeah. Midnight Sparkle.
Oh, here I am. Hello. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you.
Oh,
What did you want to say?
Yeah. Well, nothing. I just came in to listen and then add whatever I want. Or,
Okay, bye.
No, Midnight's great. He's on my channel.
I know, but
it's your channel.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I was going to ask about Lance's view on morality. Is it the same as mine, Nathan? Is he a relativist?
He is a relativist, but what motivates his position is probably quite a lot different from yours. I think that Lance's view centers more on the idea that mind-independent moral facts are just an incoherent notion. Like he just doesn't understand how we could perceive such things, how we could interact with them, what the story is. Like, how do they impinge on our senses to then make us like want, say it's right or wrong to do things. He just thinks it's a completely incoherent notion, and I don't think he thinks anyone who claims to be a realist has explained how these facts could just exist in the world and behave as the claim is that they do. So he just rejects it.
What would he say about the evolutionary argument that we have this thing called morality to help us survive and populate?
Yeah, I mean, I think he would say that is broadly right, but that gives us like obviously a stance dependent like picture of morality.
Yeah, I found it interesting that what's his name, Jamie, was just contradicting himself left and right.
But this is another thing that I mean about like arguments and belief revision is like, you can into this also responds to what Deepak said. Like, I don't think that someone can always with like a logical argument respond that way, but I think that this is a point about like that you actually can, like, you can modify your you can just introduce some random, however implausible new proposition. And I think a lot of theists are and I think we saw that with Jamie, are willing to do this, where they're just they'll do anything because like to preserve the proposition God exists, even if it's like, yeah, sometimes God changes his mind, sometimes God's doing it for the great, and it just becomes, for everyone watching, like, this is just so implausible and strange. But
hey, Bow and Arrow.
Hello.
What should we call you? You look like a Dave. Can I call you Dave?
Hey, that works. That's my middle name. You can do that.
Really? Yeah, because you look like a Dave.
No kidding.
Wow.
Yeah.
I got it. Okay, I got one question for you because I don't know how long I'll get to stay.
Okay.
So, all right. Let's say you know how how Rebecca said that she'll give you an empty box, then a piece of coal or something like that.
Yeah.
Let's one up it. Let's say we took a frog and we put it in a blender and pushed it all up. And then, so now you have all the parts of a cell that are already 95, 99% there. All the DNA strands will be connected, everything. How come in all the history of the world, when something like that happens, where something gets smashed up or something like that, do we never see like another smaller form of life spontaneously generate out of that? Considering we don't just have nothing or ex nihilo or something like that. We already have almost everything strung together. All we need is just a little zap of electricity, supposedly, if you believe Harold and Crick's theory or something like that. All we need is just a little electricity or just a little change of the atmosphere or something, and then we should get life again, right? It might not be the original thing you had, frog or something, but something should come out of that, because if it can come from something that's completely disassembled as much as, sand or rocks or whatever.
The problem with that experiment is we need 100 or 200 million years, right?
Time.
I don't know.
I don't think just that. I think you'd also say it avoids, the central claim of natural selection, which is going to be that, organisms survive because they are suitable for their ecological niche. So there's no, like, if you blend up that frog or whatever, there's no part of it that is actually fit for survival in just like this room or something, even if you put some electric current through. Whereas the hypotheses about how life got started are to do with, places where there are certain kind of, minerals, whatever.
Yeah, well, what if we put this blended frog in a one of those Yellowstone hot pools that they say?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And that probably increases the probability. That sort of thing is.
So a good question to ask theists who use this argument, like, where did life come from, has to be God, is if abiogenesis in our lifetime went from what we know was in the primordial soup to, let's say, an amoeba, would you leave Christianity or would you stop using this argument? But the answer is they're just going to move the bar to say, well, it has to at least get to a dog, so we can have intelligence. They'd probably go all the way to human. If in our lifetime, if you can blend up a frog, put it in the pool in Yellowstone, and if it ends up 5 years later being a human, then I'll leave Christianity.
Well, I see a rock turning into a penguin.
I mean, I'd be impressed if even just a new one-celled organism came out of it that wasn't there before. You know what I mean? That would be pretty interesting.
Well, isn't there research that proves that we can now like kind of create cells and create?
I'm
life?
not sure where the abiogenesis research is at right now. Does anybody know?
I mean, there are kind of a lot of partial answers to some questions, right? Like the idea is that there's first like a level of chemical evolution, right, where you just have like simple molecules, and molecules can self-select too, right? And there's like all these like non-equilibrium processes that have to happen, and they don't understand all the details. There's still some puzzles about chirality, like Doug, you're a chemist, right? So there's like, one of the puzzles is like life is like a very asymmetric from the perspective of chirality, right? Like humans can, like all animals and plants and whatever, consume only one kind of, what's the word? Like the two kinds of, I'm rambling, but basically there's some problems that definitely solve.
There you go.
Lance.
It's definitely been proven. It's definitely been proven that amino acids can develop.
Yeah, I think that's true.
Well, yeah, Harold and Crick. That's what I was talking about. Harold and Crick's experiment. You can create amino acids that, according to Ken Ham and all those people, that those sort of amino acids are not useful or used in life, but they are amino acids. I mean, I'm just saying. I'm just repeating what they say. I don't have either side, but so I don't know which is true, and I don't know exactly. I haven't seen any evidence that these things could happen. Now, however, if you go back to your abiogenesis idea at the very beginning, and something has to come together in order to continue the process, it seems like something would have to hold the structure together. So could that be a frequency of some type, maybe light waves, radio waves, blah, 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 holding a pattern so that things could form around it, such as DNA and its double helix spiral?
I think the current hypothesis is that the very first things were like lipid membranes, and lipid membranes would enclose like other molecules inside that eventually become nucleic acids and DNA and so on. And that's how it.
Okay, on this topic, I want to ask each person here the same question, and I want you to pretend there's a lie detector on you that can tell the exact truth or falsity of your answer, okay? So be honest with me and the lie detector. On this topic of life coming from non-life, does it make you think that there is indeed a deity of some sort that's behind it? Deepak, you go first.
I think there's a small increase in the likelihood of a deity because we don't know all the answers yet. So,
okay, how about you, Brandon?
I say it's slightly possible because of Deepak's reason. Yeah.
Okay, Lance.
Yeah, that has a negligible impact on whether I think God exists. Very, very small.
Okay, Wildheart?
No. The fact that we don't know something doesn't indicate God or increase its likelihood whatsoever.
Okay, Bow and Arrow, a.k.a. Dave?
Oh, I would have to exist in some different form than what I learned at Hyles-Anderson College and, Baptist Methodist churches growing up, that's for sure.
Okay.
It would definitely not be that one.
Nathan?
Doesn't move the dial for me, I don't think.
Okay, the lie detector said you're all lying except for Wildheart. No, I'm kidding. For me, I do think it does move. I'm like Deepak. It's a similar answer. It does move the needle. Like it is quite impressive to me that we do exist. Like that. I've on my channel, I've admitted this is the one miracle I believe in. It is miraculous that we're here, is it not?
Yeah. In a non-spiritual
it's so the reason that Deepak gave, where he said, there's so much that we don't know about it, so that makes me think it could be something. I think that's the same reason why it doesn't move the needle for me, because it's just like this big question mark of no idea what the hell happened.
I know, but it is easier because of that question mark. It's easier to put the fill in the blank with God, right? It does make it easier.
I think until you start thinking about it. No, I'm not saying. I mean, I'm like, because seriously, like, what's supposed to have happened? This is the problem with Atangelo and his inability to answer any of the questions posed to him. It's like, what did this disembodied mind do? I mean, did it just move a bunch of stuff together with intentional forces? Did it not do that? Did it use some intermediate? Like, what is the actual proposed explanation here? Like, what supposedly happened? And just saying intelligence did it is just it's like me saying, you know, my fork did it, right? I can say that, but I mean, how did my fork get through time to do it? Like, well, it did.
I agree with that. Yeah, unless you know how God did it, saying God did it isn't an explanation in any way, shape, or form. You have to explain how he did it. Or else you.
Well, I know it doesn't explain.
I just find it extremely frustrating not to know because I hate not knowing stuff and it drives me insane. So I honestly just don't know.
Yeah, that I agree. But did you hear the what I tried, like my attempt at steel manning Nathaniel's argument? I don't know if it makes sense.
We'll do it again here, like in 60 seconds.
Go again. Yeah.
Let me try to put it this way. I think I think it's not unfair to like bucket like the possibilities for the universe in two buckets, right? Like one is teleological, meaning the universe like there's some intention behind the existence of the universe, right? And the other is that there isn't, and maybe these aren't like exactly 50-50 from a prior, like the prior probabilities aren't 50-50, but maybe it's not unreasonable to be like, it's not like negligible either, right? It's not, so given that, like you can...
What are you saying though, Deepak? So are you saying that us existing is then evidence in favor of that there is a purpose to the universe?
In a Bayesian sense, yeah. In a very negligible sense, yeah. I actually think things like fine-tuning is maybe stronger than...
I'm going to have to bow out.
Why does that mean a God exists? Why does there being a purpose to the universe mean a God exists? Right. Suppose those priors were even, and us existing was evidence in that tipped it in favor of there's a purpose. Why does that mean a God exists?
So I just like, maybe purpose is not the best word. Like I'm just saying intentionality, right, to the existence of the universe. Meaning, like how like Alex Malpass has the notion of like there's like how do you like let's assume that the fine-tuning is a real thing, right? There is some puzzle here as to why the universe seems so precisely in a state that's like perfect for like life or complexity and so on, right? And maybe that needs an explanation. And so the explanation is that the universe has a tendency towards complexity and information and life and so on, right? And that's not a God or a person or anything or intelligence, right? But it is something, right? Like maybe we can create a bucket around all those sets of ideas and say I call that like teleological kind of.
Well, part of the beauty of the theist argument that a creator God exists is it is easy. You just can say he did it without explaining mechanisms and stuff.
Yeah.
And that's
it's too easy.
Well, no, I'm saying that's attractive and I understand it.
Yeah.
But it's attractive in a biased way, right? Because that's the problem. And that's why I'll respond to Atangelo by just saying, well, nature did it. Because the point is that you can encapsulate a complex theory in a single word. And that doesn't make the theory simple just because, you can use it. And that's the problem with saying, God, and this is the mistake that a lot of these apologists fall into, is that they get confused between the complexity of the description that they give you and the complexity of the theory that is there in behind the description.
I'm going to let Tangela in just so I can boot him later.
I jumped in because you had asked about my views, but I wasn't around. Did you
we can. Okay, so we're done with abiogenesis. We're done with life. Who cares about it? Let's talk about morality. Is there anything, Lance, that you know of me that you disagree with on morality? Things I've said?
Not like fundamentally. So I don't know exactly what your meta-ethical views are, but I tend to have like a very like fleshed out meta-ethical views that are in many ways responsive to like what's discussed in the academic literature.
Okay, I'll tell you my views, and you tell me.
Might just be like, okay.
And you tell me if you agree or disagree. I think we're like chimpanzees, and that we look at behaviors between other humans, and we call actions that we desire as morally good, and it changes from society to society, and actions that go against what we desire as morally bad.
Yeah, so I wouldn't exactly agree with that. So I think that this tendency to call things moral and immoral is not a product of biological evolution, but was generated by culture. I do think that, basically we are, primates that have these certain types of normative cognition. We think things are good or bad, and we have certain sorts of assessments of one another's behavior. but that this whole idea that there's this distinctively moral way that things can be, I think that that's largely a product of the particular cultural history of
Okay,
Western
I don't separate
civilization.
culture from genetics.
Okay, yeah, and I would be fine with like a gene culture coevolutionary models that would say that certain sorts of cultural structures and institutions like memes or whatever that emerge could then in turn influence natural selection. There could be all sorts of ways that genes and culture can interact. But you do have the possibility that there are cultures and societies that have existed, and especially that existed in the past, that they certainly had norms. They had rules for regulating one another's behavior. But this idea that there's this distinctive moral, which is like Manichaean, it has this very like good and evil dichotomous way of categorizing things. I think that that might be culturally specific, and that we're so used, it's like the waters we swim in. We're so used to thinking in moral terms that we often don't make a clear distinction between there being rules or codes of conduct or norms and there being distinctively moral ones. So I have an issue with this idea of morality as this thing that everybody.
Well, how do you
has.
define morality?
So I don't have any sort of specific definition. So I take morality, like if you want to say what is morality, what I would do is I would say, look at all the linguistic practices of particular groups that use moral language and any language that has like cognate terms for that moral language, and then say, well, what are these particular people doing and these particular groups doing when they use that language? And that would be that, like once you flesh that out, you would get moral psychology and get all the specific things that would accompany that. And so it's going to, like, I would say that it's a tendency in particular cultures for people to adopt specific ways of thinking and speaking about normativity that has a messy cluster of properties that's culturally idiosyncratic. And then I could talk about what those properties are. Like one of them, the examples I gave is that it tends to be Manichaean. It tends to divide things into this discrete, like good and bad, whereas it's possible to have a normative system that doesn't have a strict dichotomy of like A and not A. You could have a normative system that has multiple categories. They could be ranked ordinally or nominally. So there's all sorts of ways in principle that you could carve up the normative space that doesn't have to be like good, bad.
I was just going to ask, have we ever found a culture that doesn't have any morals? Because that would kind of support your case.
So it depends. You have to be very specific about what you mean by that. But there is a paper. It's on the Mongolians and the Mongolian language, and the way that you would translate moral. They don't have a precise cognate term. They have a different set of terminology. And so I have to avoid confusions here, because people might think if you say the society doesn't have moral terms and concepts, that it means that they have like no normativity and they're all like running around stabbing and killing. It's ridiculous. It's not at all what this claim is about. It's about being very clear about what you mean by moral. So Mongolians totally have normativity. They have, all this sort of stuff in their language. They have rules and laws, but they tend to emphasize in the terminology that they use, like respect more so than harm and fairness. And this is even true within Western culture, that you'll see philosophers and people having these discussions. They'll just think morality is about like harm or well-being. But as Jonathan Haidt and other people have shown with moral foundations theory, you have Oliver Scott Curry's work, which looks at the people's perspectives on what sorts of things are to be moralized, even when they use moral thought and language, tends to be a lot more complicated and multifarious than the way that a lot of people coming into these conversations think about it, because the people coming into these conversations tend to have this very specific notion that morality is about well-being or harm or fairness. And there's people that consider purity and respect and loyalty and other sorts of considerations to be moral. And I believe, and it's hard because the research on this isn't all the way in or decisive, that this isn't completely reducible in these people's moral frameworks merely to considerations about harm and fairness. So people that think that there are like sexual purity violations and this sort of thing, I don't think it's the case that those people think the only reason it's like wrong to have sex outside of marriage is because it's detrimental to the like psychological well-being of people. I think they think, no, it is just wrong. It's wrong to do that. And that is not typically captured by the way that people think about morality. So there's that issue. And then there's this issue that other cultures just don't have clear and straightforward terminology. Like for instance, Western conceptions of free will have been difficult to translate into some other languages because the people in those cultures are like, I don't know what you're talking about. So again, there's research on this.
Don't they have menus at restaurants where they have to make a choice?
Clearly no more than me, so I'll just.
But see, that's precisely the thing, that people think that if you don't have a concept of free will, like you don't think people can make choices or something like that. But that's not true. Like I don't believe in free will, and I don't think I have free will, but I think I make choices. It just, you have to get specific about what you mean by free will.
But most people have this prideful attitude that they could have done otherwise because they have the power. They could have chosen the steak and not the fish.
Yeah, so that could have done otherwise thing. There, Dan Dennett has a great paper on this. I think it's titled something like "You couldn't have done otherwise, so what?" or something. Have a look at that paper, because I think that could have done otherwise phrase is very difficult to interpret. So, like, if you wanted to, like, this is generally a problem I think philosophers have of they come up with these really sophisticated, fancy nonsense, and then they imagine that that's how non-philosophers think about things. And I just don't see any reason to think that. So a philosopher might think by could have done otherwise, it means under counterfactual conditions in which like some different state of affairs could have been. Ordinary people aren't going to know what you're talking about. They're not going to care, and it's not
A
going to matter.
nearby possible world.
Yeah. It's like, are we assuming that ordinary people are implicitly committed to some type of like possible world stuff, and that their judgments have certain sorts of implicit like modal implications? Why assume that? Philosophers just really need to do descriptive work and actually just study at what ordinary people think and talk to them if they're going to make claims about what they think they're saying and doing. I just think that philosophers impute too much to everybody.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I tend to hate philosophers, but what do you think is the most productive conversation to be had on the...
PineCreek, are you not a philosopher? What you basically do on your channel is philosophy.
You take that back, Otangelo. What's the most productive conversation that can be had on this topic of morality? Like, where would you go if someone's talking about morality and you want to...
Can I say something? Yeah. PineCreek is to philosophy as creationism is to biology.
You're quoting someone on my comment section, right? Oh, yeah.
No, not at all. Wow, someone said this.
Yeah. Someone said this on the...
Well, let me just quick. I don't believe that matter produces minds which make think and philosophize about matter using the laws of logic.
Okay, Otangelo, we got it. We got it.
And on top of that, think about ought to be's.
Think about all the bees, or
ought to be's.
What do you?
What should be?
Ought to be's.
Yeah. Ought to
what
be.
is he saying?
Rather than
ought to be.
Ought. O-U-G-H-T.
Ought to be.
Yeah. Ought to be.
Well, that's on the topic of morality. Ought to be.
Yeah.
Oh yes, it is essentially.
Should I address this question?
Yeah. Go ahead, Lance.
Shut
up, Otangelo. Go ahead, Lance.
I didn't mean to.
No, Lance. No, Lance.
I'm not gonna
it's okay. It's okay. Attention, I go way back. It's fine.
Okay. All right. So the question, I believe, was something like where should you start a conversation? Like what would I talk to people about? Can you maybe like refresh the question for me?
On the topic of morality, should we just avoid that topic altogether? Like, because it's so nonsensical?
I don't think so. So I'm kind of ambivalent. So there's this this recent thing in philosophy, which is kind of this like what next question, which is, okay, so let's say you throw out all the objective morality, like what do you do? And philosophers are kind of split minds on this. Some of them want to say that you should be a fictionalist, which is basically just keep talking about morality the same way we always did. It's just now it's just pretend, like it's make believe. I'm not super happy with that, but I'm not sure whether that's like a claim about what we will do or about what we should do. Like, it's not like anyone gives a shit what philosophers think about this sort of stuff. It's not like if philosophers say, let's keep talking as normal, people are going to go, oh, well, Richard Joyce and like the philosophers said it, so let's keep doing it. People are going to do what they're going to do, so it doesn't really matter what philosophers say about this. Again, I'm going to minimize the importance of philosophers.
That's why you're on.
The other approach is, so the other approach is abolitionism, which is like, let's get rid of the moral talk. For me, the question comes down to a practical one. Just what would be the consequences of us continuing to use the language versus not continuing to use the language? I don't know. Like, that's just an empirical question. Like, what would happen?
What's your opinion? What's your gut say?
I suspect if we got rid of the language, it would be better. So I tend to lean towards abolitionism. What I suspect is that moral language ends up serving as a mask or a cover for people to just constantly equivocate and pretend.
Listen, Otangelo, he's talking about you right now.
That when they say this is wrong, that like the universe agrees with them. And I think the conversations would be better and go more smoothly if people were just upfront about saying, I want the world to be a certain way, you want the world to be a certain way. There's a Venn diagram of overlap between how we want the world to be, and let's negotiate within that Venn diagram. And if those Venn diagrams are too far apart, there's not a discussion to be had anymore. There is not anything you're going to be able to say to someone that's like, I don't know, part of like some terrorist group or something, where you're going to like say, hey, you're not aware of all the non-moral facts. If you were aware of them, then you would realize that actually like.
So are you saying I should stop talking to Atangelo because we're so far apart?
So that's a different issue. That's an issue of what kind of terminology you use, what your motivations are for having a discussion, your epistemic practices. There's a whole bunch of other things. I'm just focused on the moral issue. In some cases, people just have different goals and values, and they're not reconcilable. And there's not like, if aliens showed up, here would be like a thought experiment. I know everybody hates super complicated thought experiments. Aliens show up, like we say, and all I want to do is just like kill and eat all humans. Humans are a delicacy for them. What would you like? Would you be like, no, please don't? That's morally wrong. Like, what if they're like, yeah, we don't care. Like, we just want to eat you. At that point, like the only thing to do is like fight the aliens or try to get away from them. So philosophers, a friend of mine mentioned this. I don't remember where Dan Dennett said this, but he said that he often gets the impression that philosophers want to have an argument that's so compelling, that's so airtight, that if you don't accept it, you die. And that's just not how philosophy works. Like people in the real world, it doesn't matter if you give them a good philosophical argument. If they don't want to do the thing that you're proposing or accept the conclusions that you're presenting, they're just gonna, I don't care. I like my beliefs, screw you. So it's not like people hear an argument and they go, oh my God, it is a logically valid argument and the premises appear true. I am going to accept it. No one does that. No one. I don't even think philosophers do that, however high-minded they want to be. So I think philosophers aspire to this thing where like you could present these pure arguments and then people are going to hear them and go, oh, wow, I'm going to accept it. Nah. What's actually happening is people have all these motivations, people have insecurities and goals and feelings and emotions, and all of that is wrapped up in how people actually go about forming their beliefs. And I think
hang on a second, Lance. You have a PhD in philosophy, right?
It's master's.
Master's. Well,
but he's working towards a PhD. Right?
Are you working towards a PhD?
In psychology, not philosophy.
Okay.
Although I do interdisciplinary work.
Because
philosophy.
it sounds like you have a deep-seated hatred for philosophy like I do. Like, what are you doing in that realm?
Oh, yes, very much so. I think I'm not sure I've met anybody that is as critical of philosophy as I am. Like,
hello, I'm in the room too.
Yeah, so I don't know if you know how far I go and how critical I am of philosophy. So like I have I almost feel like someone that's gone into the field almost to spite the people in the field. And this is something that I didn't get to talk to Nathan much about this earlier today. But I have this concern about the way that academic philosophy operates, where philosophers are starting to take do you know that Phil paper survey?
Yeah,
where
yeah.
They surveyed a bunch of philosophers' views. Yeah, so philosophers are starting to use this to say like 82% of philosophers say such and such, so you should go with the consensus of philosophers. And the problem that I keep pointing out is, yeah, but philosophers are self-selecting for people that care about the methods and think that the methods that they use work. I don't think that they do. And they're not like, how many people are going to go into moral philosophy that think morality is a bunch of nonsense?
So you're saying I shouldn't use the Phil papers to say that the majority of philosophers are naturalists?
You could say that they're naturalists. It's just a question of like I wouldn't take that to be very good evidence that naturalism is true. The fact that philosophers think it, who cares what philosophers think? It's a little bit of evidence, but it's not very much. And the problem is that consensus within philosophy is largely driven by what's fashionable at the time and by very sociological forces about what people like. I mean, do you trust the way that philosophers go about reaching their conclusions to be a reliable guide toward what the world is really like? Because I don't. And I'm in the field. And look, a lot of these people are very smart, but I think that they've been dealt a bad hand by being equipped with methods that largely say, look, like one of the foundational things that I think philosophers do is they want to take this sort of common sense picture of the way that the world is and vindicate it, to justify it at all costs. So you have like a Sellers talking about the manifest image and the scientific image. And I think a lot of philosophers, like part of what philosophers are doing is they're apologists for what they take to be the common sense view of what the way the world is. I don't care one way or the other about the common sense view of the world. The common sense view is consistently wrong about all sorts of stuff all through history. I don't want to vindicate the common sense view. If science says you're wrong, you're wrong. Like what? Like I'm not that interested in doing that. So philosophers do this thing where it seems true, and now all I have to do is justify the fact that it seems true, and then that all you're doing is just it. Basically, I think a lot of the way academic philosophy works is you pick your conclusions first, and then your justifications afterwards. And philosophers end up inadvertently reasoning and arguing with lawyers rather than
Yeah.
people that are genuinely disinterested.
Yeah, I agree with much of what you're saying, if not all. But Attention's about to tear up. He wants to talk. Attention, do you have a napkin there to wipe your tears, just in case?
Yeah, I almost need.
Okay,
one.
I'm going to take Lance's advice here, and the discussion on morality to be had is to try to find where our Venn diagram circles overlap. Now, you know what a Venn diagram is? Oh, never mind.
Well, no, I don't. But would you guys like to know my position on morality?
Yeah, can I summarize it for you? Because I think I can do it faster than you. Is that all right?
No, I don't think you can't. I just put it right away.
Okay, go ahead.
Atheists can eat babies. There is no problem with that because there are no morals if atheism is true.
Okay, let's.
I don't think that.
Let's focus in on commonalities and where we overlap on morality. So, can you propose something, Otanja, that you think you and I would both agree on about morality?
Doug, as a fellow atheist, I have a quick question.
I think loving each other and caring for well-being is something that we universally can agree on.
See, isn't this amazing? An atheist and a Christian coming together, and we agree that we should care about people's well-being. And what's the other thing you said? Now, why do you think
that would probably mean that you'd disappear from the internet, Artangelo? But
why do you care about people's well-being? We'll say some people to make it fair.
I mean, at least I have a grounding, which is the Bible, which is the golden rule, which says that we should love each other. And
is that the reason why you care about people? Is because you have a grounding for it?
Of course, at least I have one. You don't. But I think that if I care about others, it will return to me, and it will improve well-being of all of us.
See, look, potential. We have that in common too. I too believe that if I treat other people well, they tend to treat me well back.
Right. So it's actually a good thing to do, right?
Yeah.
So the golden rule and Christianity altogether is actually proposing something which is positive. Would you agree on that?
Yeah, I do think there can be some positive outcomes from that, and also negative. But what
would be the negative things in regards of we love each other?
Well, it's exactly what we were talking about on Rebecca's channel, and I kind of made a very bad joke since it's Memorial Day about thank you to all those military people who shot their neighbors so we could live free in the U.S. But it was sort of a joke, sort of not. Who's your neighbor? Who do you love? Is it everyone, even the one who's trying to break into your house and kill your children?
Well, I think
it's just
you can apply it universally that you're next. And I mean, the rich guy, he asked, well, who is your neighbor? And Christ, he gave an example and said that the guy who saved the one which was half dead on the road, and he treated him. So I think it is something which is universal, that we should treat others well, and not just our neighbors, but everyone that we deal with.
Mm-hmm. And the problem is, what does exactly that means, right?
There's something about Christianity that resonates with what Lance said. You know, when Lance was talking about the aliens, and there's no moral discourse to be had. You just fight them or flight. Isn't that what God does with Satan, right? It's not like he's debating Satan about right and wrong. He just throws him in the abyss, right? There's just pure opposition. There isn't like, it's like, is God incapable of giving a moral argument? I mean, does that, like, can he not convince him of the moral facts, you know?
Right. So this is what I think is at the heart of some of the issues with moral realism is, you know, one of the things I say to moral realists is, I wouldn't care if moral realism were true. Let's say there were these objective moral facts out there in the world. There were facts about what's morally right or wrong. Let's say that they happen to align with your motivations and beliefs. So it happened to be the case that it's morally wrong to let go and torture babies. It's morally wrong to punch people just for fun. Okay, I won't do those things, but I already didn't want to. But let's say that the moral facts are reversed, or they're like really bizarre. So it's that you should go out and torture babies for fun, or you should spend all day screaming at tables. Yeah, no thanks, I'm not going to do those things. So if the objective facts align with my goals and interests, I'll comply with them, but it's not because they're the objective facts, it's because I wanted to do those things. If the objective facts don't align with my goals and interests, I won't do them. regardless of whether they're morally right or wrong. So part of my issue with moral realists is like, I just don't see why we should care whether there's an objective moral fact or not. I think it's the case that we just, as a matter of fact, are motivated exclusively by our goals and interests. That's what causes us to do the things that we want to do. Now, if you happen to have the desire or the motivation to act in accordance with the objective moral facts, whatever those happen to be, then if the objective moral facts involve screaming at tables or torturing babies, then maybe you'll do that. I don't have that motivation. I don't care about that. And I think it would be pretty awful if people had that. And I think it'd be pretty awful because I'm against torturing babies and have no interest in screaming at tables. So ultimately, the arbiter of whether I would do anything and whether I would consider these things good or bad is my goals and values. And I think that this is generally true of people. And I think a lot of times, I think moral realists are just projecting their goals and interests onto the world.
Yeah, Tangelo, this refers to you. He's talking about you exactly right now.
No, it may be, but I'm also just thinking of academic philosophers. And I think there's this sort of existential fear that if the universe doesn't approve of our actions, if they're not written into the fabric of the cosmos, that this would somehow render our actions meaningless or without value. I think William Lane Craig goes on about this a lot. And I don't see it that way. I think for something to be meaningful just is for it to be meaningful to me. So I can think of things as being valuable or disvaluable, but I can only make sense of something being valuable to me or to you.
But this is like,
I don't know what I mean for something to be intrinsically valuable.
Tangelo and Japheth, welcome. I think both of these guys are moral realists in the sense that they would say their grounding is the nature of God for morality. But what Lance is getting at is, well, who cares about that grounding? Why ought we listen to this God? What's the reasons behind it? Tangelo, actually, Japheth, do you have any ideas on that? Thoughts on that?
Okay, I differ from many theists because I hold to a legislative view of morality. So, since I am an open theist, God's morality does evolve. So, I do subscribe that morality is subjective, and we ought to obey God simply because I fear Him. And God is the most powerful being.
You know what? That's a great answer. I like that answer.
I 100% agree with that answer. If God says, look, do this, or I'm going to torture people, I'll do it. And I think I would consider that a good reason to do it. So
if you were convinced that God had said that, right? Yeah.
Yeah. If
quite important.
God is there, and God doesn't, I don't have to describe God as malicious. Like I could just say, look, these are the rules, follow the rules and good stuff happen, violate the rules and really, really bad stuff is going to happen. I probably follow the rules. I might do it grudgingly depending on what the rules are. But I think that would be a sensible reason.
Tangelo, do you agree with?
That I shouldn't, regardless of my
do you agree with Japheth that that's a good reason ought to obey God? Because if you don't, He'll punish you.
Well, we should do good things in order to improve well-being. I think that there is a common sense in regards to what humanist morals propose and what the golden rule propose. It's parallel.
Okay.
And what Japheth said, of course, there are things which you should not give an undecked check that isn't in the Bible, but we all agree that we shouldn't do that, right? So in that sense, of course, the more humanity evolves and there are situations which are new and where we have to make new moral considerations. Is that new situation? How do we behave in regards of that?
But Tangelo, if we share that common goal of, let's say, making society better in some specific way, does the grounding even matter at that point?
Well, you look it from the perspective that we are all there is, but I see it from the perspective that God created everything.
But I could say, who cares? Who cares? Who cares? Who cares? What does the grounding have to do with this issue of morality? If we both are agreed,
well, maybe you don't care because you see it from your perspective.
I know, but that's not my question. My question is, does the grounding really matter if we share this a common goal of, let's say, on a specific thing to make society better?
No.
Yes, thank you, Tangelo. See, some people accuse you of being a dishonest interlocutor, but that was I think you gave a good, honest answer.
Can I complete my point?
Yeah. Go ahead.
So the Bible says God created creation for his pleasure, and the reason why God created man, the purpose of man is to fear God and keep his commandments. So in a way, God exists and he created man because he desires interaction. So in some sense, God created creation because of well-being, for the common, to increase the well-being of both God and the creatures. So as long as we are obeying God, we please God. So when we please God, God cares for our well-being. But when we no longer care for God's well-being, that is when God sends people to hell. And I'm also motivated by love. So the fruit of the Holy Spirit is I do show love to other people. And fear is, so I walk in the fear of God and I walk in the love of God.
Do you believe these carrots and
God,
sticks are just in the afterlife or here today?
In here today. So yeah, I love people. So my motivation is not just fearing God, because and I need to prove that I have the fruit of the Holy Spirit. That's why I love people too. So so when I do good things, I'm genuinely motivated by love as well.
But this love you're defining as from God, right?
I became a Christian at age 21, but some general idea of love is already imprinted in our human nature, and the Bible the Bible does improve on that concept.
So you would say that you, after age 21, you love more and better than, let's say, Danny.
I don't know.
Because Danny's an atheist. He just came out of the closet.
It is different environments. Maybe he grows up under a loving parents. So if Danny grows up under a loving parents, maybe he already has some natural advantage over me, and I have to learn it. So I don't know.
Oh, that's interesting. So you're saying someone can love better than you as a Christian, even if they're an atheist, if they were raised properly?
No, not now. Okay, now it's better. But I think since I have the Holy Spirit,
you have an edge because you got the Holy Spirit. Yeah, that's yes. The trump card.
A lot of love I get from Christians are just so that I get converted. It's kind of, it feels so bad when they only want to hang around me because they want me to have their beliefs. It feels really
yeah, Danny, I love you. I just don't love you when you kick me out from
no, you do not love me. What are you talking about?
I just don't love you when you kick me out from your stream.
Actually, I do think Danny's right.
Okay, well then you
like when I, since I left Christianity and I go back to church, it's been very rare. But when I do go back, I do sense I'm treated better as an atheist than as a Christian in church, because they want to be that person to say, "Hey, I turned Doug around and I brought him back into the fold."
Yeah. You know, the last thing my dad said to me about this like atheism stuff is I asked him, you're not really interested in understanding my point of view. You just want me to have the same beliefs as you. And he said, yeah, that's it. He admitted it.
Do you think he said?
But isn't that what atheists all want? That we also become skeptic about our beliefs?
Not really, right?
You ask PineCreek?
I don't care that much.
I don't care that much, yeah.
Because, I mean, if that isn't the goal, you see all these atheist YouTube channels, ACA and so forth. I mean, none of these interlocutors have ever changed their mind. Matt Dillahunty does that for 15 years. So, of course, he's not asking us to provide evidence because he wants to be reconverted to become a Christian again. He does this because he wants to drag us down to become unbelievers.
There's a sense in which you can share each other's point of view without trying to convince each other, right? That's just like a kind of fellowship. Like, oh, how do you think about this?
Then what's the point to have these conversations, Danny?
Well, I think the point is going to be very different for someone like Matt Dillahunty. I mean, at this point, for example, he has a career built around it. So if he can invite people to conversations where he can make himself look good and continue to build his public profile as, you know, like an atheist activist and someone who talks about these things with plausibility, well, those are some goals, right, that he might have. He might want to get rich, famous, all these sorts of things, and it makes sense for him to act the way he does.
Treat the conversations as ends. They're entertaining to me. I have fun talking about Phil stuff, God stuff, and that's just the end. I mean, I don't see why there needs to be any more.
I mean, I think there's one purpose it can have, which is like, you know, it can also bring your social and political positions more aligned with mine, right, as an atheist. So, for example, once you turn an atheist, like maybe you won't believe that, that abortion, you'd be willing to permit abortion within the first month or 2 months or something, right? It's possible, right? So to that extent, I kind of want to convert you, but not more than that.
I mean, Danny has said he does it for fun. PineCreek, I asked you too, what is your motivation behind what you do? You said, I'll do it for fun, but what I see that many
And to make you
atheists,
cry,
they're
too.
So passionate. They're so
Absolutely.
passionate about defending their disbelief in God.
I think this might be a selection thing, though, Attention.
Yeah, exactly.
Because
Yeah.
the ones who are passionate are talking to you, and you can be very frustrating to talk to.
Atanso, my wife is more atheist than me, if that's possible, right? And she would never she wonders what I'm doing on these YouTube channels sometimes.
And I think she is very, very smart in regards to that, because what is the sense of just confessing what you don't believe in? I ask that atheists all the time. I mean, I have a positive case, but atheists don't. They just say, well, I don't believe you, so
I have a positive case. This is something this is something I'm changing.
We've all given.
I've evolved on, and like I have a video where I say there's no good reasons for atheism, but I'm kind of waffling on that because it depends on, because atheism, that word doesn't exist without theism, right? It's atheism, and so I just say that there's no good reason to believe any gods exist.
Right, but you are basically spending time to say to others what you don't stand for. Well, isn't it more reasonable to proclaim what you actually do stand for?
Yeah, I do stand for that.
I do
stand for that the Bible is made up by men. I stand for that, and I stand by that, and I'll provide evidence for it.
Okay, so why is that informative to me? Because I think actually the Bible is God's word.
Right, so now we can have that conversation on where we disagree, where we agree, and I can put seeds of doubt in your shoes, and you can put seeds in mine.
Yeah, well, why isn't Doug not allowed to have those motivations? That's what I find.
No, I'm not saying you are not allowed to have them, but I am just questioning the point.
But he's kind of provided you with that, right? Or even, I mean, Deepak provided you his reasons. I mean, I'd say similarly, I just kind of like thinking about these things. I enjoy having these conversations. Something I find interesting. That isn't that enough motivation for me to do it? What more do I need than that?
Yeah, but Nathan, what I see is 90% atheists, they don't want to return to the faith. What they want is to have the dialogue with theists, with us, in order to drag us down to their unbelief.
Okay, why do you say drag down?
Right, but what's that?
Why not pull up?
But what's that got to do with my position, right?
Well, maybe you are a big exception, Nathan. I am talking about what I generally observe.
No, I know, but I'm telling you, why are you then still continuing to attribute that to me, though, when I've said what my motivations are and that they're not that?
No, I was talking in general. Just
okay, but let's assume the worst motives, Tangelo, of every atheist YouTuber out there. So what? Let's say their goal is to drag all Christians down, and especially you. What does that matter?
Well, to me, it doesn't matter much, but I question them why they are doing it, because it is meaningless.
Because they're working for Satan.
Oh, yeah, of course. I mean, there is the whole.
I get tired of this, because when I started on YouTube and in other platforms years ago, people were always questioning my motives like you are now. And I basically, at a certain point in my life, made a decision. Whenever I'm asked that question, I'll just say, my motive, my goal here is to get you to go to hell. And that I'm an agent of Satan. I'll give them, because I know in the back of their mind, that's what they're thinking. And they want to hear that. So I'll say it. And then ask the question, well, so what? Can we still have a conversation? Or are you scared that the Holy Spirit's not as strong as the demonic spirit that I have? Let's go.
Right.
Actually, I think you hang out with all those. Well, I don't know if hanging out is the right word, but you encounter those atheists on Clubhouse and stuff a lot, right? Darth Arianis and Jack Angstreck and stuff, Tom Rabbit and stuff. I think they're actually very smart people, but the reason they're doing it is different. They just want to own people, right, on the internet, and maybe there's some residual resentment from some of them because, like, they lived through many years of Christianity that they felt was time wasted. So this is one way to work through those resentment issues. But
yeah, I completely agree with that. If anyone here hasn't heard one of the argumentative theory of reasoning, I really recommend checking that out. In fact, there's a book, I don't remember the name of the book, sorry. But anyway, the argumentative theory of reasoning is this view that reasoning evolved not merely to facilitate acquiring true beliefs, but so for people to argue that basically that our minds are built more to function like we're lawyers that just want to win. Than to just be impartially disinterested in the truth.
Yeah.
And that really comports with the way that you'll see a lot of internet debates. What is the best description of what people are doing there? Is everybody just trying to figure out what's true? Or is everybody trying to look smart and make all their enemies look like stupid and terrible people? It's clearly the latter. And this theory says, well, there's actually a good reason why people would do that. So if you look at it from like a natural selection perspective, what's more important if I'm a member of a group? For me to get my way in a way that, I make my enemies look bad and make my allies look good, or to be correct? Well, it's the former. And so it actually would make sense for people to be really good at just being really selective with what sort of information they attend to be kind of inconsistent and biased. And this account actually shows why that is a feature from an evolutionary perspective rather than a bug.
But when I started to call in at the ACA 3 years ago, they questioned me and said, well, can you be convinced that there is no God? And I said, yes, but they questioned and said, well, no, we think that you have your mind made up, and that because of that, you are a dishonest interlocutor. But what I am seeing is that is precisely what they are doing. You can bring the best arguments, and it doesn't matter. They just dismiss it.
I don't think anyone here is a huge fan of the ACA and Delahunty and stuff, right? They're on a TV show, They're doing it mostly to entertain their atheist audience, not to.
They're part of a political community and all that.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So I have a question. How to spell your name?
Otangelo.
Otangelo. So you said it is possible for you to change your mind to become an atheist?
Yes.
Okay.
Ask him what it would take.
What would it take?
Two things which I always say. You would need to provide me good reasons why non-intelligent mechanisms explain better our reality, our world. That's one point. And the second, if someone would find with conclusive proof the bones of Jesus.
Okay. Mr. PineCreek, do you still remember our first conversation?
Vaguely, yeah. I've had so many conversations, it's tough to remember the details.
Well, I straight up front tell nothing in the universe is going to change my mind. Yeah, but just to
I remember you said that. So you disagree with Otangelo. Yeah. You think that even if the bones of Jesus were found, you'd still remain a Christian?
But, I have some knowledge about history and archaeology. It's impossible you can verify it's Jesus, but
wait a minute. You're saying it's impossible to verify the bones of Jesus?
We don't even have the DNA of Jesus. How it's scientifically impossible. How can you prove
Otangelo?
No, I am giving a hypothetical.
Okay, maybe the second requirement is it's quite impossible.
But do you agree, Otangelo, with Japheth that you can't verify the bones of Jesus?
Well, I don't think so. Of course, we cannot do that.
Okay, then give me a realistic thing that would cause you to leave Christianity.
Well, I think this is a realistic.
You just said it's impossible.
Okay. As I said, one good reason would be if an atheist could explain our reality better without a creator.
No. I said Christianity, not. There could be a creator God and.
Well, if you remove that proof, then no, that I could not be convinced otherwise.
So the ACA was right when they assumed that you wouldn't leave Christianity.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, Otangelo. You should call up the ACA tomorrow. What day is it? Today, and say, Oh no, it's Monday. Yesterday.
But you know,
You
PineCreek,
should apologize.
what makes me worse? No, because they are doing exactly the same thing. You can call in for 15 years and you will not change the mind of any of those people. So they are close-minded. They are not there because they want to be convinced that Christianity.
I think, Otangelo, I say this without jest or being facetious or anything. I think if you, me, if everybody in this room and Matt Dillahunty were at a coffee shop, and Matt Dillahunty said, without prompting, he let's say he heard of me and he said, "Hey, Atangelo," and he's just joking around and he dips his napkin in water and says, "Atangelo, pray in Jesus' name to light this on fire. Hey, if you think Jesus is real," and let's say you did pray and it did light on fire at Matt's request, so he knows he's not tricking himself. I guarantee you, his whole worldview would change.
No, he had a debate with Mike Licona, and Mike Licona asked him. He said, if someone would chop off the head of someone and then on a fingertip that head would be fixed again on the body, would you believe that this miracle would prove God? He said no.
No, I didn't say that. I said his whole worldview would change.
There's a difference, right? The difference, Otangelo, is that there's nothing specific about Christianity in the head being chopped off. All that it shows that there's something more than normal physics happening in the world, right? Doesn't lead to God or Christianity, right? But
putting a chopped off head on your head again and that person continuing to live is not just physics.
Means
right?
that Jesus rose from the dead, right?
Yeah, you can't.
No, he wanted to give an example where he couldn't escape, and he basically said, "Well, I would believe anyway." And I mean, the thing isn't even if you can prove God, because if you ask them, well, if God would prove himself to you, would you start to believe? Would you start to worship him? And they say no, because they think God is a monster.
I kind of feel that way too, actually.
The mind. What's your name? The mind says. You can unmute yourself.
His headphones are.
Yeah. Did you have something to say on this topic? Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay, what do I have to say? I was literally trying to get my headphones to work right now, so I was kind of distracted because I want to be able to talk in the conversation without
What do you want to talk about though?
Like
what conversation?
Let me see. I mean, I agree with what he's saying. Like, y'all want to tell us like, oh, you're trying to convert us to Christianity when we're just trying to give like good perspectives or good, I feel like, logical reasons to believe. And I don't know, I feel like it's like a form of what is that called, self-projection. Like they're self-projecting all of their flaws, or when I say they, I'm referring to the atheists. They're seeing themselves inside the believer, and they're just like, why are you trying to make us believe this and that?
Well, I think a lot of atheists do what they do because they want to justify their atheism. Like I'm not, like, a lot of them are, in the United States at least, are ex-Christians, and so they want to feel good about their decision to leave Christianity.
I agree with you on that, PineCreek.
I bet you over half of my viewers are like that.
Yeah, they want their worldview to be confirmed.
Yeah.
They want to feel secure, and many have confessed they struggle still with hell. They fear about hell, and they went.
I'm not sure about that. I don't know. I should make a poll. How many ex-Christians here are still fearing hell? I don't. I can honestly say not a scotch. I'm not scared at all.
Yeah, I don't either anymore. I did for about 2 months maybe, but.
The mind says, are you a believer or non-believer?
I am a believer.
Okay.
I would have in a spirit world and one creator that made everything.
But you're not a Christian?
I mean, I think we had this conversation before. I definitely believe that there was a guy who did some miracles and had a big impact on like reality and stuff, but I don't really adhere to the Christian type of religion. I definitely am not. I would defend it, but I'm not. I wouldn't say I am Christian, but
Well, are you
I
in the
think there's
habit
a
of
lot of truth.
defending things that you think is false?
No.
So you do think
No,
Christianity is true then?
To a certain extent, I definitely feel like there has been a lot of manipulation, over
What?
the
Yeah,
years.
but do you believe that Christ died on the cross for our sins?
Yeah, I definitely believe something like that happened along the
Too
way.
hesitant.
Yeah, you don't seem
Down
that
middle.
confident.
It'll be
So what do you base your belief on? Is it on the Bible?
Say it again.
What do you base your belief on? Is it on the Bible? Why do you believe Jesus died for our sin? That's from the Bible.
Yeah, it's in the Bible. So I mean, I like everything that we learn, we first need to come in contact with it somehow. So I mean, it doesn't necessarily like just need to be the Bible. I read the Tao Te Ching, the Book of the Way. There's a lot of deep truths in that too.
You sound like a
just,
pluralist to
only-
me. Like you sound more Hindu than Christian.
Yeah. We.
Hey, Damon, do you know the way?
Where are you
Do
from?
know the way? Yeah, I do. I mean,
I
it's
know
So Jesus said, "I am the truth, the way, and life.
Uh-huh.
Nobody comes to the Father than through me." And that you need to be born again to receive Christ as Lord and Savior. Have you done that? Have you given your life to Christ?
I have done that in the past, but I grew up in a Christian home, and I would have to say I literally would argue with the pastors, taking the same talking points that most atheists take, like slavery. That was one of them. I was like, when did slaves stop being a thing? Because
You're frustrating Otangelo here, I can tell. So let me help Otangelo out. Yes or no? Do you believe Jesus Christ was actually God in flesh? Lean yes, lean no.
I would say I think we're all
Lean
a
yes,
little part
lean
of
no.
God. Okay, yes.
Do you believe Jesus Christ died on the cross for your sins and rose the third day? Lean yes, lean no. Bodily.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, he's a Christian, Otangelo. You're brothers in Christ.
Do you believe that
I'm
Jesus
still
Christ
not
was
sure. I'm still not sure.
Yeah, that's fine. I don't need you to
No,
believe me.
I know. I'm just saying.
The mind. Can you answer?
So if you die today, where do you go? Do you go to heaven or to hell? Or you don't know?
It just depends on whatever he wants, really. I mean, they say it has to do with it's ultimately his decision, really. So.
But he made you a promise.
So you don't know.
He made you a promise that if you believe in
So
him
you
and
don't
confess him
know.
with your mouth, that you will inherit eternal life. Don't you believe the word of God? How am I doing, Japheth?
PineCreek, you're funny.
So here's the thing. I as a Christian, even though I'm not a Catholic, I do believe in purgatory. So even as a believer, if you are not holy enough, you will not go straight to heaven.
Okay, there's a refining fire process, right?
Yeah. Yes.
So Japhet, so it is faith and good deeds and good works in order to be saved. Is that what you believe?
That is what's James 2. Yes. Good deeds in pleasing God. Yes.
So how many good deeds do you need to do in order to be accepted by God?
You have to Galatians 5:19 to 21. If you are walking sincerely with God, you're on the right track. But if you are double-minded,
so you don't know. So you don't know if you are a child of God. It depends.
I know I'm a child of God. I am under His grace. Hopefully, I am aiming to go heaven straight if I pass away. But even if I go purgatory, it's been a very short period.
Yeah, Tiangelo, even Jesus went to hell.
So
he's a substitute for our sin.
Just for the weekend.
But Enoch was goes to heaven straight without physical death.
That's what I'm going to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we got 3 very different Christians in here right now. And we got Oflamio, who's a polytheist, right?
Yes. So PineCreek, we already established, according to your test, that sodium does pass that test. Therefore, it is God by your standards.
No. Get ye behind me,
Yeah,
Satan.
you put sodium on that napkin. then put it in water, it lights on fire.
Yeah. No, you put a napkin in water and it lights on fire. Not sodium in a napkin in water.
Yeah, but you ask what you add to the napkin to light on fire. Sodium. There you go.
Which gods do you believe in, Aflamio?
Pretty much all of them that are largely consistent. So if the god just literally negates itself in existence, I don't care about it.
Thor,
So
Odin.
Is omnipotent, omnipotent, omniscient. That doesn't make any sense. So I don't believe in that one.
Only Jehovah alone is omnipotent.
No, because he lost to Chemosh in the Bible.
He lost to who?
Chemosh.
Where's that in scripture?
Ocean Caltor did a video on it.
Where's that in scripture?
I think it was King.
I know there's a scripture that says God couldn't defeat so-and-so because he didn't have iron chariots.
That context, in the first chapter of Judges, that people did not satisfy God's condition. God gave them a condition for those Israelites not to intermarry, and they violated that condition. That is why.
Oh, wasn't it about the iron chariots?
That's not
It
what
wasn't
it
about iron chariot. They did. God instructed the Israelites not to intermarry because one or two verses before that, it mentioned about a certain tribe of Israel intermarrying forbidden tribe, the tribe that Jehovah told them not to intermarry, and they violated that command. That is why God didn't fully help them. There's only one instance where, yeah.
When you say
So
all
it's
that,
Kings 3:18 through 19. I can put in our local chat.
See ya, Tangelo. The Lord was with men of Judah. They took possession of the hill country, but they were unable to drive the people from the plains because they had chariots fitted with iron. It says nothing about interbreeding or.
Wait. Hold on.
I tell you, if you want to defeat Yahweh, you just get some iron chariots.
He can sometimes beat them, but he sometimes.
We'll come into that. I think I prepared a verse. Hold on.
Doug.
What?
Doug, we're talking ontology, not metallurgy.
It's a category mistake.
It's a category.
2 Kings 3? Is that what you're talking about, Flamio?
Affirmative.
Yeah. Okay. Mr. Pine.
Yeah.
So in Judges 1:16, right? The children of the Canaanite. Yeah. Just 1:16.
I just find, like now I'm not invested at all in any of the theological disagreement about the Bible. When like the polytheist and the different varieties of theists and stuff are disagreeing, it's just like
It's
people
just, okay, I'll
debating
come
over.
to.
What's your favorite?
To...
when Tuvok goes evil, like how do you resolve that with the plot line of?
Oh, it's like arguing about plots of Star Trek, right? Like,
yeah. It's like
the Kardashians,
Dragon Ball Z.
Whatever.
I'm just saying Yahweh doesn't power scale to a bunch of gods. He's not omnipotent. So.
Well, in season 3, when it says he loses to the Iron Chariots, how do you deal with that? Because by season 11, he can clearly defeat Iron Chariots.
Parallel universe, Nathan. Don't you know how these things work?
The writers changed, man. They got new writers.
Okay, what is?
Did you see the?
Yeah. Okay.
Did you...
Let's see here. Take heed, therefore, unto yourselves, and you love the Lord. Blah blah. Go wise. Oh, and shall make marriages with them. Go in unto them, and they to you. Know for certainty that the Lord your God will no more drive out any of these nations from you, but you be snares and traps. Okay, yeah, but that doesn't negate the scripture I said.
And in just 1:16, they violated that, so God wasn't there to help them. This is just a few verses before the.
Well, can we not say there's two reasons then? The reason you gave and the reason I gave that Yahweh was defeated.
Well, if you look at there is in one instance God defeated Assyria, 185,000 army in one night, and this battle in which Assyria lost is actually recorded in history.
Yeah, but they didn't have iron chariots.
One example of the lot is in the 2 Kings 19:35.
What wins in a fight? Samson with a goat jaw or one iron chariot?
Samson.
But didn't Samson kill like a whole army with a goat jaw?
Yeah, Samson's gonna win.
He's gonna win. What about like 5 iron chariots?
Samson still. It's just Yahweh's weak to iron.
You know what? I just thought of a good test of what would convert me back to Christianity or even Judaism. Jeff, let me know what you think of this, and the mind says as well. We recreate the ancient Israelite army, what they had at that time, let's say 3,000 years ago, and we put them against the U.S. military. And the U.S. military has a full green light to annihilate and kill as quickly as they can in any means they want, nuclear bombs included. And if the Israelite army can defeat the United States Army with all its power, Navy, Army, the SEALs, the nukes, everything, if Yahweh can beat the United States, let's say we get an island, well, we'll choose New Zealand because that's worth nothing. We'll have this fight in New Zealand. And if Yahweh and the Israelite army can beat the United States, I'll convert.
The God's on both sides. Both sides of the armies. That's not fair.
Okay.
The nukes, everything.
Yossarian Rosenhan? There you are.
Hello?
I've never talked to you before. What do you want to say?
Oh, I was just, I've been trying to log in for a while. I'm trying to work out whereby. Now, are you guys still on morality? Are you? Have we wandered?
We're still kind of on morality, but we're talking about what would change our minds, what would cause us to become atheists or Christians or leave Christianity.
Yeah. No, it's interesting. I'm an ex evangelist of what's it called? I used to be in the evangelicals, so I used to hold the same kind of grounding, you know, the idea that the what is it, sola scriptura, or the inerrancy of scripture, and that was the basis.
Are you from New Zealand? Are you from New Zealand?
No, from I'm originally from Holland, but I live in the UK.
Okay. So you were an evangelist? Were you a street preacher?
No, I was an evangelical. Sorry, I should have said. So yeah.
Okay, what changed your mind?
To be honest, Hitchens. You know, I started reading Hitchens and started asking questions, and I guess I fell in love with the guy's honesty and candor, so read all of his stuff.
Plus, you liked his accent, right?
Yeah, and his rhetoric. He had good rhetoric. You know, he managed to deal with enemies with good humor.
Yeah.
And I guess it opened the door for me to at least really consider his arguments.
So do you get frustrated with Christians nowadays when you hear them talk?
Well, my family or my parents are still kind of coming out of it. I find it less annoying these days. I guess. I mean, the simple morality I find difficult. So these two guys that we've got in the group here, you know, we have God. It is good because God says it is good, and therefore do as God says and you will do the right thing. And it seems like a rather simplistic approach to a rather more complex issue.
But if you don't, you go to hell. Like that's what Japheth said, and it was a very refreshing response.
Yeah, that's and of course not everybody believes that being amoral is being sinful. You know, not always, because for most Christians, as I was raised, it's sin, or that actually
there is no amoral. You're either with God or you're against Him.
That's right, but God won't give us amoral requests, and because God gives us these amoral requests, they are by definition good, and therefore going against that is sin. And so sometimes to do the wrong thing is the right thing, or to do the right thing is sinful. You know, it's a strange dichotomy. I think that for me, you start to see all the way around you when you're in that world, it just doesn't match up, does it?
What's your advice on talking to what should atheists do to lead more Christians to hell?
Live a sinful life, you know.
And smile when you do it.
Show them the benefits of a life without God's morality. You know, it's better on the other side. You know, follow the white rabbit.
Okay, and Japheth, what would you say in response? Like, why should Yosarian go back to Christianity?
Well, if you treasure eternal life, and you don't want to get tortured, that's the.
Oh, I just love his answers. They're so direct and to the point, and where it matters.
And also, and I think there's a lot of perception out there that religion is just to make people good. That is not the main point. Under the Christian God created the universe creation for His pleasure. So our primary duty is to please God, not even morality itself. But yes, God takes care of our well-being if we please Him.
Why can't God please Himself?
Well, he can in His human form.
I got it.
That's a good question. I believe a living being needs interaction. So God created human for interaction. That's.
So you're saying God had needs?
He was lonely.
Well, he's an open theist. Not needs as in he can survive without other human, without creatures. But needs as in increase his well-being. Really? Yes. If I say increase his well-being, yes. Not to survive. I mean.
But you're saying God's basically a version of me. Has needs, has wants, has desires. Could be better if only.
A more powerful version of human. Yes.
You should become a Mormon.
Well, I mean, I am an open theist, so God is a real thinking agent, not the classical theist. So the classical theist, I believe, is.
I know, yeah. Your views, Japheth, are very refreshing, and they, I think, in a way, this solves a lot of problems. You don't really have the problem of evil like other Christians do, but you give up so much. Like, you basically have to view Yahweh as a super Thor.
Yeah, if Yahweh's a super Thor anyways, why can't there be more than one of them? I mean, Thor has Odin and Loki. The Bible even says there's
the gods. Trinity of the Norse gods or whatever.
So what's the question? Yeah.
So if your god's pretty much like Thor anyways, and Thor has other gods in his pantheon, why not believe in other gods as well? Since you're an open, you're right there already.
I am convinced that Jehovah is the creator of the universe.
Yeah, but he could
actually. Flamio, you got to be careful because I think Japheth actually does believe many gods exist. So in a way, he is a polytheist. Am I wrong?
I am a polybotheist, but not a polytheist. I am a monogroup theist.
Yeah.
There's probably more than three because the Bible mentions more than three.
Mentions what?
The Bible mentions more than three gods.
Yeah, he's right.
I believe the term God used in contemporary English implies you have magic, you are a creator, but that is how we use the God in contemporary English. But we use the Hebrew God refers to boss. So Jehovah is the supreme boss.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean other. Yeah, but that doesn't mean other.
More than three bosses.
Well, no, hang on, Flamio. Let's give him a little. Let's give him a little. Let's give him a little rope. Japheth, you do believe more than one God exists, yes?
I am a monogroup theist.
Besides the Trinity, you believe other gods exist, correct?
No, I believe there are other bosses other than Trinity.
Okay, yeah, we talked about this, but it depends, I guess, how you define God. So we won't get into it. Alejandro, welcome.
Okay, poly bosses.
Yeah, how's it going, guys?
Yes,
good.
Poly bosses.
Did you want to say something? Oh, see you, Nathan.
Wait, can I just interject and make this my own conversation now, or how does new people work?
Well, we're on the topic of many gods, but you can say whatever you want. Go ahead. I don't care.
Okay. Yeah, I was just wondering what you guys think about Daniel 9 and how the atheists here suppress the truth and reject it. I'm not actually a Christian. I'm being ironic, but I'm looking through Daniel 9 and I'm wondering what the answers are to it, because I know what the Christian answer is. is there a viable atheist answer to it? Like Jesus is gonna come during this time, and then he did, or not Jesus, like the Messiah is gonna come, like exactly when Jesus.
Oh yeah,
came.
yeah.
So what do
The
you
secular answer to Daniel 9, which is the 70 weeks prophecy, would be the secular historian answer to that would be that that prophecy ended at the time of the writing, or even shortly before. So it's referring to a different start time than the Jews, a different start time than the Christians, and a different end time. And I studied this like years ago, and I forget the exact names of the leaders involved in it. But there is a secular answer to that Daniel 9 prophecy.
Yeah, no, I know that there is, because like obviously people haven't been convinced by it, but like I'm wondering what it is. Okay, wait,
I have
but
an answer.
yeah, sorry.
Yeah, I have a potential answer for you. So Jesus doesn't meet the definition of the Jewish Messiah, but there's been other people throughout history later than him who have been closer. So the Jewish definition of Messiah is a king and a conqueror. So Genghis Khan would fit the definition closer than Jesus would.
Wait, Floyd, do you know the secular explanation of Daniel 9?
I sure do. I have a 2-hour presentation on Daniel 9 on my YouTube channel.
Okay, so Cliff Notes. When does it start? When does it end? Who is the prince? And so forth.
Yeah, so the an anointed one from Daniel 9:26 is anointed high priest Onias III, who was killed in 171 BCE by the Hellenized Jews that took power during that time. So Daniel 9, the whole section between Daniel 7 to Daniel chapter 12 deals with the period of Antiochus IV Epiphanes during the 2nd century BCE. So it's about that time period. Christians, even some Jews, like to move it up to 70 CE with the destruction of the Jewish temple then. But Daniel 9 makes no mention, or the book of Daniel itself makes no mention at all of Rome. It's Babylon, Persia, the Medes, and then the Greek Empire with Alexander the Great. Even says, it splits into 4 kingdoms, which is when the 4 generals took control of Alexander's kingdom. And then Antiochus Epiphanes from the Seleucid Empire, he ruled during that time. And if you read chapter 11, it describes it perfectly. And then it drops off right around 164 BCE. So that's when secular scholars think that's when it was actually written. So the earlier chapters are later folk tales about like Daniel in the lion's den and stuff like that. Those are somewhat later, but the chapters between 7 and 12 are all about the time period of the 2nd century.
Yeah, and why this is important is because there are Christians out there who will say Daniel 9 points to the almost exact date, although they're like, I think, half a week off, even on their math, that Jesus was prophesied to come at that certain time in history. But really, there's at least 4 different interpretations of Daniel 9, the Jewish one, 2 Christian ones, and the secular one.
I go into great, excruciating detail about all those dates, the dates that apologists uses, the dating methodologies that the apologist uses. They invented a prophetic year, which is 360 days out of a year, to make it fit. So the dispensationalists have a certain period, 444 BCE, when one of the decrees to rebuild the temple started. And then they invented the 360-day year, which they call a prophetic year. And then when you do the math, it goes right to 30 CE. It's Jesus.
Do you think the Christian interpretation of the Messiah coming in, let's say, the year 30, was well known, let's say, at the year 10 BCE?
Yeah, I was wondering if that was one of the things that could have influenced the course of events.
Yeah, like a self-fulfilled prophecy.
yeah, I mean, if you read the Dead Sea Scrolls, uh, they're just aching for the Messiah to come around, during that whole period of time. It could be about the righteous teacher of the
You'll get a word in, Jeff. Don't worry.
And so forth. But I mean, the calculations, they're all fudged. They're all reverse engineered, saying, okay, this is who we want the Messiah to be. Let's reverse engineer the dating and the date and make it fit into our scheme. So that's what's happening there. But if you just read it in context, it's clearly about the period of Antiochus Epiphanes during the second century. When a Christian says, "Oh, what about Daniel 9?" and I said, "Oh, well, if Daniel 9 is about the Roman period and Jesus, well, tell me what's going on in chapter 11." Because chapter 11 is clearly about Antiochus Epiphanes.
Okay, Floyd, we got to get Japheth in here, otherwise he's going to burst a brain vessel here.
Yeah. So, PineCreek, just when you asked me a question, I gave up so much to be an open theist. I think I have a higher view of God now as an open theist because God is more powerful if he has free will. In the classical view of God, God has no free will. So, I mean, what do I actually give up? Can I know what
I thought you wanted to address Daniel 9. Like, do you think Daniel 9 is a prophecy?
As an open theist, I see all prophecies as self-fulfilling because God gave a plan in advance and God caused it to happen. So to me, prophecy is...
Well, no, let me be more specific with my question. Do you believe Daniel 9 points to Jesus in the first century Palestine?
The Messiah 3.5, yes.
Now, given what Floyd just said, don't you think it's more reasonable to say that it has nothing to do with Jesus in the first century of Palestine?
My position is when Daniel 9 is a prophecy, right? So when God gives a prophecy, it's usually open-ended. So God has multiple ways to accomplish it.
No, what Floyd's saying is not a prophecy at all. It's just a guy writing about descriptions of things that already happened.
I believe he's referring to Jesus, but even if he is for view, I don't hold it very strongly. Even if his view is correct, so what?
Well, so what?
I have a question for Floyd.
Go ahead, Flamio.
Yes.
Okay, where did Jesus move to after he came back?
Sorry?
So where did Jesus move to after he came back?
Came back from where?
Yeah.
Being dead.
Heaven, or the right hand of the Father.
Well,
I mean, after the resurrection, he was on earth for 40 days, and then he returned to the Father.
Okay, read that again. Floyd, what do you think?
Well, I think Jesus is dead. I mean, I'm an atheist. I don't believe he was resurrected.
Okay, 2 for dead.
Okay, Flamio.
Yeah, and notice in 926 it says, it depends what translation you read, but it says, a Messiah will be cut off and have nothing. You notice there's nothing about and will be resurrected 3 days later. There's nothing about that. But in chapter 12, we then have a general resurrection of the dead. After that event, and it's a general resurrection where everyone is resurrected, and the good get heavenly blessings, and the bad people, get eternal punishment, so forth. And that was supposed to happen after Antiochus was killed, and obviously that didn't happen. So Christians are forced, perhaps some Jews are forced to move that event out, thousands of years later, when it will happen sometime in the future, which of course, we've been waiting 2,000 years and nothing has happened.
Floyd, since you seem to know about this, a claim that I've heard that I haven't verified or not is that it's supposed to be reinterpreting Jeremiah's failed prophecy of 70 weeks. Is that true, that that one didn't work out, so then they came up with this one, or?
Yeah. Just read verse 2 of chapter 9. It mentions exactly that. It mentions Jeremiah.
Yeah. But so like I'm still like looking through all this, but my understanding, like what a Christian would say is like, so the 70 weeks happened, and now there's another 70 weeks to keep going. So it was like,
the original prophecy from Jeremiah is that the Jews would be in Babylonian exile for 70 years. In 70 years they would return. Of course, that wasn't exactly 70 years, but apologists will fudge that math as well.
69 and a half.
Well, it's more like 50 something. I forget the exact thing. You can force it to be 70, but again, should we even take it literally? I mean, 70 is a pretty rounded number, right? Is it meant to be taken literally? I don't think we have to take it literally.
I mean, if God was doing all of this, he could do it in round numbers, right? Like that.
Yeah, it's a round number. So, but in Daniel it says, well, yeah, Daniel's lamenting, saying, okay, well, and he's supposed to be, he's one of the Babylonian captives supposedly, who's on the royal court for multiple kings, through the reigns, and he's lamenting, saying, well, 70 years has passed and the Jewish people are still, in turmoil, they're still being persecuted, and then the angel Gabriel comes along and says, oh no, it's not 70 years, but it's 70 weeks of years, which means 70 times 7, which is 490 years. So we're just not talking about a 70-year period. Now we're talking about a 490-year period where different events are going to occur. And then in the 69th week, a Messiah, or the Messiah, depends on what version you read. If you open up the King James, it'll say the Messiah. If you open up the RSV, it'll say a Messiah. That Messiah will be cut off. Now, if you look at the context of chapter 7, chapter 8, 9, and to 11, you'll see that it's about the period of the 2nd century under the persecution of Antiochus Epiphanes. So who was that Messiah that was cut off during that period? Well, that was Onias III. His brother, who was a Hellenized Jew, kicked him out, and then at 171 BC, he's actually murdered.
So what Alejandro's big picture question is, could a guy from the Essene movement back in the 1st century Palestine read Daniel 9, thought he was the Messiah as prophesied in Daniel 9, and started a movement that led to Christianity, and basically all this stuff that Japheth believes is false?
Yeah,
I was going to ask that.
I recommend. I have a 2-hour-long presentation on my YouTube channel where I go into excruciating detail about this, and I have a follow-up one. It was a mirror I did on the In Time show, where it was my response to what Christians have to say. And again, it's I go into great detail about how the Christians calculate these dates and these numbers and how they work things out.
Let's let Yosarian, you wanted to say something?
Well, I was going to ask Japheth whether he'd seen Toy Story, the scene where Buzz goes into like one of these grabber toy things and ends up with a bunch of little alien toys, and these alien toys had never been outside of the grabber, and Buzz tells them about the outside world. And in the next movie, when Buzz goes back in there, they've created a whole religion around what Buzz told them about the outside world. Have you? Do you not think it's more likely that that's the?
Go ahead. Well, I'm just wondering what this relevance this has, but you're getting there.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. To this Christ figure that comes, that says particular things. Things are said about him, and the people that hear him in first century Palestine, they've never really heard any of the stuff that he tells them. And so what's more likely, that a bunch of these people didn't understand what this guy, if there was a guy called Jesus, told them, or that all the things that they say about him are true, or that they've actually understood him because they've never actually went out of the realm that that they lived in, which was first century Palestine. So if they encountered somebody like that came from the East, for instance, in the, do you not think it's more likely that it's just a big misunderstanding, Christianity?
I have done a lot
Then
of
the
research.
prophecies are true.
I am convinced that the Bible is inerrant, and
yes.
So to talk about, I'll come back to that. Like the prophecy, Isaiah gave a prophecy a few hundred years before Cyrus became king. So God raised up Cyrus. So God self-fulfilled the prophecy. So I think in regards to Daniel, I am an open theist, so I'm not like other Christian who believe that the future is already fixed. So God gives prophecy just to show off His power. So occasionally God does cancel His plan. So I mean,
but what Floyd's saying is this is not a prophecy at all.
Yeah, I don't think New Testament actually quoted Daniel. I don't remember New Testament actually quoted Daniel. So I believe the 3.5 years is. I don't have a strong position in regards to Daniel, so I mean it doesn't matter for my.
Jesus quotes Daniel sometimes, like the abomination of desolation.
Yeah, good point, Alejandro.
Yeah.
In Revelations, yeah, the statue of Apollo in the Holy of Holies.
Right. That's what I think Daniel 9 is writing about, the abomination of desolation. Now, that's mentioned in the Gospels. Mark mentions it, and Matthew even adds as Daniel speaks. So Matthew's familiar with the book of Daniel, and he refers to it. And it seems like in the Gospels that's interpreted as the destruction of the Jerusalem temple in 70 CE. But I think originally the abomination of desolation that Daniel's talking about is the erection of the Zeus statue, which they put into the Jerusalem temple. So they're basically desecrating the temple. In fact, Antiochus Epiphanes actually slaughters a pig on the altar in the temple, which is you're basically contaminating the temple. But Antiochus was he was the Antichrist. He pretty much he was heavily persecuting the Jews. He put an end to the Sabbath. He put an end to the practice of circumcision. In fact, one of the things he did is two Jewish mothers had their babies circumcised, and he had the babies killed, and they had to wear the babies around their necks. That's how vile this guy was.
But wasn't it commonplace, Floyd, in that time period for authors just to write stuff saying it's prophecy and really they're just recording history?
Right. Yeah. So if you have a book saying, "Oh, don't worry, God knew about this, and it will come to an end," the book of Daniel is an apocalyptic writing. And apocalyptic writing, the central theme is that the people are under great persecution, that the powers of evil are in control right now, but very soon God will intervene and make things right. So just keep the faith, hold on. It's going to come to an end pretty soon, and it did come to an end. The Maccabean revolt happened, and the Jews gained independence for a very brief time until the Romans came and took charge again. But yeah, I mean, Judas Maccabees was considered a kind of like a Messiah figure.
You're an atheist?
I'm sorry?
Yeah, Floyd's an atheist.
You are an atheist.
Yeah.
Yes, I am.
And you spend a lot of time just to debunk the Daniel.
Floyd's like me. He's trying to lead people to hell.
Yeah.
It's okay. I mean, just curious. I have an historical information I will share. So the Bible has 3 contact points with Chinese history. The major one is the crucifixion, and it is 1,700 years before Christ was on the cross. during the time of Joseph, there was 7 years of harvest and 7 years of famine, right?
That's what it says.
That was sound reflection. Okay.
What's your point?
So
somebody needs to mute.
And when China experienced that 7 years of famine as well. I calculated it at 1662 BC for 7 years. So I have, from my own research, I am quite. My faith towards inerrancy has grown stronger. But so I believe it's inerrant because all the historical details are correct. And another major historical event is when Emperor.
Wait, hang on, Jeff. I got to push back on that. So let's say you're.
Yes, are you saying like the Bible talks about what happened in China? Is that what you're saying?
Oh, it happens in Egypt, but it was a global event, and China experienced.
Does the Bible say it's a global event?
What event?
Yes.
Okay.
Over all the earth.
Over all the earth. It was okay. Now let's say you're right. Let's say that actually did happen in history. That doesn't mean the Bible's right about everything, does it?
It's so precise, and that 1662 is we have geological evidence. It was a mount.
No, I'm granting you for sake of argument that it was precise on that one point, but I'm asking a broader question. That doesn't mean the Bible's right about everything.
It would up the credibility, though, right?
What's the event?
He said he said a global famine.
I mean,
during the time of Joseph and the Egyptian, you know, the story of Joseph going to Egypt and telling people to store their wheat and.
Yeah, and the first king of Shang dynasty actually stored 7 years of grain. So so there is an ancient Chinese phrase has been transmitted down for 3,600 years. The king Tang of Shang is such a good.
But how do you know there wasn't like you're saying? Since there was a drought in a famine in China at the same time as in Egypt, does that mean there was a drought in Canada, or it's now Canada?
It's global, but China is one of the few civilizations that actually have the longest.
I know, but how do you know that there was a global famine around the world?
China and Egypt experienced it at the same time.
I know, but how do you know there was a global famine around the world?
Well, because China and Egypt are 8,000 kilometers apart, and they both experience it.
So if two countries in the world experience a drought, that means the whole world does?
But what he's saying is that Egypt and China is like one of the only places that would like have actually.
Well, yeah, I understand that, but I'm saying just because we have a lack of evidence of.
And then there is also the volcano. There's a major volcano eruption in 17th century BC. So this eruption.
How does that strengthen your faith?
Sorry.
How does that strengthen your faith? How does that strengthen your faith? So there was a famine, and it was recorded in the Bible, and it was recorded elsewhere. So if that's true, then both the faiths of both those places would be true, wouldn't it? If a global event proves that your faith is true, then it would mean that the other people that recorded it, their faith would also be true, no?
Well, if I understand correctly, the Chinese people weren't doing this in their religious book. They were just talking about things that were happening in their history, right? So it wouldn't be confirming their faith because that's not in their religious
actually,
context, right?
the first king of Shang dynasty is a monotheist, and the ancient Chinese called the god Shaddai. It's almost exactly the same as how the Hebrew will pronounce.
Yeah, but Yossarian's bringing up a good point. So let's say you have a Taoist or something in China who now says, "Oh man, I know the deity I believe in is true because look, even the Jews say this happened back in in Egypt. So therefore, Taoism is true and Judaism, who cares?"
Well, the question would be, okay, Japheth, the people that wrote this down in China, were they religious or were they just keeping records about what was going on in this?
Just keeping records.
Okay, so yeah, then Doug, this wouldn't work to like confirm.
Well, no, but I can give it as a hypothetical. If a Chinese person was to use this as an argument to raise their confidence about their specific deity, Japheth wouldn't take that as a good reason at all, but yet he takes it as a good reason for himself. Am I right?
But I mean, my point is all
that
the
didn't
events in
happen.
the Bible that it's that there are secular record that it all happened.
Yeah, but even that,
Like,
you're basically saying since it happened in 2 countries, it happened in 200 countries.
and there was a volcanic eruption that caused that drought. The 17th century BC. So not only China. So we pretty much know it's at least the entire old world.
Japheth, you're a great guy, but this is horrible epistemology. You're saying you're coming to know these things for horrible reasons.
Wait, I think I can bolster this a bit. Like, I wouldn't go so far as to say that it was like because of this, it was across the whole world. But you can say that like it happened to be in like the 2 places that were writing it down. So maybe it was happening like in other places, and it at least raises the probability and like it gets you to look at that, right?
Well, yeah, but let's say it raises the probability 0.5%. Like, it's still no reason to say it happened in 2 countries. Therefore, I now am confident that the Bible's correct, that it was a global famine.
This is just one of the evidence. Okay, no, this is not the
okay, but the thing is, this is the problem, Japheth, with conversations like this. When you say, well, this is just one of the reasons, you kind of understand what I'm saying. I can see it in your eyes. And then I can tell you, let's put it on a shelf then and say, this is not a good reason to believe that the Bible's inerrant. And then you go on to the next one. And we'll go back and forth like this forever, right?
Okay, what I'm saying is, okay, this event is true, and I mean, at least there are evidences outside the Bible that to prove that the events that happened in the Bible are correct. So that's just,
yeah. But with my flying man thought experiment, I often talk about Arizona. And what if I told you that I have a book that says certain true things about the history of Arizona, but in the book it says that my ancestor flew across the Grand Canyon. And I say, hey, look, Japheth, but look, I trust this document because it says it pinpoints exactly where Flagstaff is in relation to the Phoenix area. And so therefore, I trust that my ancestor flew across the Grand Canyon. You'd say that's ridiculous. But this is the argument you're making for why you trust the Bible. Right?
Okay, you mean that's no.
Just because the Bible, let's say the Bible is correct in naming real places, real events, real people, that does not mean that everything in it is true.
Okay, I grant you that. I mean, so far it has been reliable, and I have not found an error yet.
Well, I have.
Doug, so if it's naming real places and real people, that like constrains more about like how much flexibility the people can have. I'm not saying like therefore it's true, but it means that like if you can show that like the people, like the prophets were real and they were real people, and like certain events around them were real, that there's less flexibility in like how much you can dismiss about it, because you have to explain like how in this context the supernatural events would be happening. Now that doesn't mean that those events therefore happen, but it raises the probability.
Okay, hang on, Alejandro, hang on. I'm a real person living in a real place.
Mm-hmm.
Does that fact raise the probability that I can fly unaided?
As opposed to you not existing, yes. And if
no, as opposed to me not flying unaided.
So if there were claims that you flew unaided,
I'm claiming it right now. That yesterday I flew unaided. I just like a bird. I started flying, and I'm a real person, in a real place. Do you think that raises the probability, even the slightest, that I actually flew?
As opposed to you not saying.
No,
that?
as opposed to me not flying.
No. Okay, wait. What? Okay, so it raises the probability, but like from what?
At all. So are you saying that it raises the probability that I'm a real person existing in a real place that other people could verify, that it raises the probability that I actually flew?
It raises the probability of scotch, yes.
Oh my goodness, Alejandro. What's wrong with you?
Wait, what's wrong with this? What's wrong with this? Like, there's still like more explaining away that we can do, but like, if you actually
serious?
did fly. Wait, what's wrong with this? Can you like lay it out?
Because we have many examples of real people existing in real places and no examples of people flying unaided. And you saying just the fact that I exist raises the probability I can fly?
Okay, so if there is a story about you flying,
A story. I can make up any story
yes.
you want me to.
Yeah, so you'd have to explain why you made that up and how you came to that.
Because God wanted me to
now,
fly.
I can obviously see from this context that you're making it up to prove a point. But if someone
Just like the gospel
else did a
authors.
different- do we know that they were just making it up to like prove a point, or I thought that they were?
Well, now we're talking about motives, but yeah, go on.
Yeah, because like we have to explain motives. We have to explain like why. Like it's obvious that you can't fly because like I can tell that you're just trying to make a point, like by saying that you can fly. But just real people and real places as opposed to fake people and fake places does constrain like how much like what you have to explain and like what you have to.
But you know, to me, this is nuts. Absolutely crazy that just saying a real person exists and lives in a real place raises the probability that they actually flew.
As opposed to them not existing.
No, as opposed to them not flying. You keep saying that.
No. Okay, you're not understanding what I'm saying. So here's this situation. Like we know. No. Wait.
We're down to 2. Oh my goodness.
Okay, last topic, easier one. Just oops.
Yeah, go ahead. I can hear you.
You asked me what do I have to lose by adopting my position.
Okay, what do you have to lose besides hell?
Yeah, you say I lose a lot by having the position that I have. I think you didn't complete.
I said that today.
Yeah, I think you for believing in a personal God, open theist, I'm losing a lot. If you can think of right now, it's okay.
Okay,
I mean,
well, no. Well, for example, there's certain things that you're supposed to do as a Christian, right? Like go to church.
Yeah,
be in the fellowship of other believers.
Is open. Yeah. I do all those things.
Be under the submission of church authority.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm doing all those. Yeah.
Okay, so what do you have to lose? Well, let's say you're in a church with elders and deacons who tell you that they have to excommunicate you because you did a certain thing. And this causes you
open season.
And this causes you pain and turmoil in your life. In my opinion, this is much ado about nothing. But in your life, this could cause you harm because your church has now excommunicated you. Let's say you get married and divorced. Or let's say you, I don't know, get caught looking at something on your computer and the...
No. So just now, maybe I misunderstood you. So you say by being an open theist, I'm losing a lot, or is it by being a Christian, I lose
open
a lot?
theist? Okay, yeah. In that context, what you're losing is the omnipotence and omniscience of God.
I believe God is more omnipotent in open theism than the traditional view.
No, because
because
I think you said earlier that God needed to create, needed fellowship, needed people to worship Him.
Oh yeah. So it's I know that what I do does matter to God. I mean, in the classical view, what I do doesn't matter to God.
So Floyd's here and I'm here, and Floyd says I don't need people to like me and worship me and give me thanks and glory, and I say yeah I do. Who's more powerful, Floyd or me?
Okay.
Is being needy perfect?
Yeah. Isn't neediness kind of a weakness?
I don't see it that way. I mean, I see I am genuinely able to contribute to God's well-being. So I matters more.
See, but even listen, you're breaking up on me now, but listen to what you just said. I can contribute to God's well-being, which implies that God is not filled. If he was a gas tank, he's not topped off. You feel as a mere mortal, you have to put some more gas in God's gas tank.
To make him happy, but he's powerful.
To make him happy. He's not happy already. He's not self-reliant, self-sufficient. in need of nothing. He needs you, Japheth.
He needs humans, not just me. I mean, he needs interaction. I mean, I'm not that special. I mean, he needs humans.
There's three of them though. Is he lonely?
Yeah, he's already in the Trinity.
Bored?
What if God thinks that's not enough? What if he wants more? I mean,
Like Floyd doesn't need humans. I think Floyd's more powerful than Yahweh.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm on the spectrum. I don't like being around people.
Maybe God's autistic.
Yeah.
So, and actually, in open theism, for God to accomplish prophecies is more powerful than the traditional view, because God actually sometimes has to control human to make these prophecies happen. So it's definitely more powerful.
This is the weakness of open theism, is what I'm describing. You're basically making God a superhuman who's, he can't see the future because, well, it doesn't exist yet or whatever. He just knows what's exhaustively already happened or in the present. And so, the Christians like Otangelo, they say, no, he sees the future before it even happens. And when it comes to omnipotence, you say, well, God, I can contribute to his well-being. I can make him happy. Well, that, okay, sure, call him omnipotent, but he's not as omnipotent as Otangelo's God, who doesn't need you at all, or any human, but he just, chose for morally sufficient reasons to make them.
I mean, I think those classical theist arguments are quite bullshit to me, because I mean, either God creates human for a certain purpose that advances his well-being, or he does not. So if creating humans does not advance his well-being, then creating humans is just a purposeless move. So yeah, with open theism, you can actually have a framework in which morality evolves, like the Old Testament somewhat is okay with slavery, but the New Testament is no longer mentioned at all. So I have a framework where actually morality does improve for the better. So in their system, they can't answer it at all.
Yeah,
it's like a neo-Marcionite.
Yeah.
Sorry.
He said you're a neo-Marcionite. That a Marcionite is basically someone who rejects the Old Testament God for the evil acts, heinous atrocities he's done.
No.
But you don't. You're a neo-Marcionite, meaning that you think that God was kind of a dick back then, but now he's changed his ways through the birth of his son. He softened up a little.
Well, okay. I still take the revelation somewhat literally. So unless majority of mankind repent, he's still going to punish a lot of people in Revelation.
Yeah.
But
what a horrible way to live your life. To think that there's this eternal conscious torment and that some of the people you love are going to end up there. Like, you love me, right?
You're a nice person. I'm quite curious because I've seen a number of your videos, and you seem like a nice person.
Yeah, I am nice. Floyd's nice too. But if you're right about what you believe, Floyd and I are doomed.
I mean, you both believe morality is subjective, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, since it's subjective, why can't you change?
Okay, Japheth, you're breaking up too much. Floyd, there's a guy who complimented you, said you're a legend or something like that, and wanted to come in, but I said no. But that's what he wanted me to tell you.
Oh, thank you. That's nice.
Well, thanks for coming in and clarifying some things about Daniel 9.
Yeah, I was supposed to have a debate with S.J. Thomason on Daniel 9, but
she's here listening. But she's just scared to come in.
She said she had to do more research on it. But
well, SJ, it's not too late. If you want to come in and learn from Floyd, it's not too late. Just come in and kneel at his feet and just listen as a good student.
Yeah, one thing Christians and SJ has brought up in the past is that Josephus mentions that Alexander the Great was actually presented with a copy of Daniel and read from Daniel. So if that's the case, then Daniel was actually written later than what critical scholars say.
Oh yeah, that's one of her arguments, right? That she gives that. What did she say exactly about Josephus and Daniel 9?
Yeah, I mean, if that's correct, then yeah, then the book of Daniel is later than the second century, and that would debunk the view that critical scholars have that it was written in the second century. Since if Alexander the Great read it, then it was actually written early and so forth. But we have to be careful when we read Josephus. Josephus was a Jewish apologist. He wanted, he was basically a captive, a Roman captive, and he wanted to make, the Jewish religion and culture and so forth, look nice.
You're saying there was motive for Josephus to fudge.
Yeah, and I mean, Josephus writes about Adam and Eve and Moses. I mean, how he had accurate reporting of that.
Well,
No,
you're giving SJ ammo here. She'd say, yeah, so therefore Adam and Eve existed. It's even Josephus says it.
Yeah, I mean, how would Josephus, be in any position to know what happened with Moses and Adam and Eve?
Maybe Josephus is the real word of God.
Yeah, I mean, that's the way Christians are treating it. Well, of course, anything that supports their view, they'll say Josephus is perfect, but if anything that hurts their view, they'll say, oh, well, Josephus was just a Jewish biased historian who, so he, that wasn't.
What percentage of the New Testament do you think Josephus vicariously wrote? You know what I mean by that?
Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, the view is that Luke and even Mark and so forth knew about Josephus, read Josephus and included that into their Gospels. But I agree that at least Luke, probably Mark as well, read Josephus and used that information, particularly in the Book of Acts.
Yeah.
We have history in the Book of Acts. That seems to be taken straight from Josephus. Something very telling is in the Book of Acts, there's actually a historical mistake where the high priest Gamaliel gives a speech after apparently this Jewish martyr died, and that was the order in which Josephus reported it. But
is that Acts 5? Where is that again?
I could look it up for you.
I want to show people this because this is really damaging to people like Japheth, who thinks this is the God's word, and
let me find
Acts
it.
5 is not. So if you're a Christian, don't leave. This is my way of dragging you down to hell.
Yeah, hold on, let me find it. Okay, yeah. So it's Acts 5:36.
Oh, I was right. It is.
Yeah, Gamaliel supposed to have given a speech in the earlier mid-30s, shortly after the death of Jesus, mentioning the uprise of Theodis, hopefully I'm saying that right, which didn't occur till some 10 years after Gamaliel's speech, and compounds the error by implicitly dating the census and uprising of Jewish Galilean, which happened in 6 CE after the Eudas. I hope I'm saying that right.
I'll just say Theudas.
Yeah, Theudas, I guess. Yeah. So the problem is that Gamaliel, I hope I'm saying that right, gave a speech before the uprising of Theudas, which is a mistake. And Josephus reports this and puts it reports it in that order, but if you actually read it, Josephus, it's reversed. But Luke makes a mistake thinking that's the order in which it actually happened in history.
Yeah.
So so Luke has a copy of Josephus in front of him and taking it and creating writing the Book of Acts, based on it, and he screws that up.
Yeah. So that's good evidence that the author of Luke Acts had Josephus open in front of him when he wrote, which also dates Luke Acts when? Wasn't Josephus written in?
Well, that would be clearly after like 93.
Yeah.
See, I mean, some more radical Christian Bible scholars. I mean, we're getting like into the Robert Prices and so forth. I actually think Mark was actually not written during the time of the fall of Jerusalem in 70 CE, but the second destruction of the temple during the Karbakba, I'm saying it wrong, revolt, and I believe that was around 130 something. I forget what scholar, Herman Dettering, I forget the exact scholar. He describes, where it says, like mothers giving suckle, like run to the hills and, hope it doesn't happen in the winter time and so forth. That better describes that event during when Simon Bar Kokhba was killed than actually the events of 70 CE. So you could put actually Mark around 130, and then the other Gospels were written after that, which is much later. But the majority view among critical scholars is that Mark was written around 70 CE, and then basically add on 10
So
years.
why do critical scholars put Luke Acts at, let's say, 80 or 85, which is what I've heard, and or do you think the majority put it there?
Well, I think, again, usually the way you can remember it is like every 10 years. So Mark was written in 70, Matthew would be 80, Luke would be 90, okay, and then John would be 110. But yeah, I would put Luke after Josephus. So we're talking after 92, 93 BC, after the Antiquity of the Jews were written. Because that's where he's getting his material from.
Yeah.
But again, you could be like a Dutch radical scholar, or one of the one of the more fringe scholars, and put all the Gospels into the 2nd century. Which would be remarkable. Like if you follow Robert Price doesn't believe that Paul wrote any of the epistles attributed to him. It's just not the lucky. You didn't believe the lucky 7.
But the problem
out of the 13.
The problem here for I'd say 30% of Christians in the United States, if what you're saying about Luke Acts is true here, that basically borrowed a lot of things from Josephus, I think they're done at this point if they become convinced of that. If they're coming from the perspective of the Bible's the inerrant, inspired Word of God, to, oh yeah, Luke Acts had a copy of Josephus in front of him, got the order of the events wrong, and it's clear that he copied this from Josephus. If they become convinced of that, it's over, right? Like, how do they recover from that?
Well, yeah, I mean, the more you study the Bible, the more human it becomes. There's 2 ways to view the Bible. Either the Bible is a human book written about God, or it's a divine book from God. And when you start studying the Bible and start seeing more and more that it's a human book about God, it becomes less sacred and less authoritative in your life. And then you start going downhill.
Let me ask you a meta question about this. Like, do you think these types of issues has any impact on the majority of believers? Like, is it stuff like this that, like, you're an ex-Christian, right?
Yeah.
Is this some of the things that got you to leave?
Yeah, I mean, I started looking into this, and
okay.
Yeah, it started falling apart, and I started reading this like in the 80s and 70s when the internet didn't exist. I had to actually go to the library, to a college library, and
But I wonder what percentage of Christians are like you.
Oh, very little.
Yeah.
We talked about this before. People are Christian because they don't want to be worm food. It's hope, meaning, and purpose.
Like SJ, people like SJ, she would push back with all her might with everything you're saying, because there's just too much at stake for her.
Yeah, you start reading about the documentary hypothesis, the JEPD and stuff like that. So Moses didn't write the Pentateuch. The Exodus didn't happen. Noah's flood didn't happen. The conquest didn't happen. Lucan census story didn't happen. It contradicts the Matthean nativity story by 10 years, and you know, and the details about it. You know, the Bible just falls apart like a house of cards at that point. You know, and Christianity just dies. And then you can compound it with, like, you know, the failed prophecy of Jesus' return and the generation of the New Testament writers. I mean, that put the nail in the coffin for me in regards to Christianity.
Yeah, I flip flop on this. Like in the early years, I was more about the details and the weeds, like we're talking about right now. But the older I get, the more I think it's about, you know, that replacement, the hope, meaning, and purpose, the desire to want to see your loved ones again in heaven. And so I don't know which is the best tactic to bringing people down to hell.
Yeah, I mean, it's rough. Emotionally, I think people need a crutch to get through life. It's difficult. In the last 2 years, I lost my parents, and it's rough. You know, it's rough dealing with that. You know, I'm an orphan now, although, you know, I'm an older orphan.
Have you seen the show Curb Your Enthusiasm? No, because there's actually a line about, you know, an older gentleman like us saying, "I'm an orphan now."
But yeah, life is different now for me. You know, when that happens, you know it's going to happen. You know it's going to occur. You know, it's just a matter of time. But you know, and you prepare for it, and you know it's going to happen. But when it does happen, it's still rough. You know, and you know, but for a Christian, I'm going to see my mom and dad again in heaven, assuming that, you know, they're saved Christians, and I'm a saved Christian.
Well, maybe atheism is just for rich, stable people.
Yeah, it's like you said, for people that are dead inside, people that you know.
Yeah, don't need that assurance or certainty or, you know, hope for eternal life.
Yeah. I think the idea is just of eternal life just going on and on forever is, you know, eventually you're going to be bored. But I mean, it'll be good if you can always enjoy things, right? But you know, in this state, you know, we get older, we get, you know, you get bad eyes. Eventually, you get back pain, and you know, you start falling apart because you're old. You know, we would need some sort of glorified body. But you know, what is it like in heaven? It's church, you know, 24/7. You know, you just praise God the whole time, and you're just floating around in the clouds.
Well, when
You
I
know, what sort of
debated,
life is that?
was it with Trenhorn? I think he asked me the question, if heaven was every day after is better than the day before, would you want to be there?
I mean, I would answer yes, but like, can I play Xbox games in heaven? Do they have great movies in heaven? Do you need to eat in heaven? Well, apparently there's no marriage in heaven, so I guess there's no sex because everyone
There's just adultery in heaven, or fornication, I should say.
Yeah, I guess there's no sex in heaven. Do you eat?
Yeah.
And if you eat,
do you
know,
poop?
I guess, you know, yeah, you don't have to poop. Your shit don't stink because you don't have shit. It doesn't, you know, the more you think about heaven, the more absurd it is. You know, you just twiddle your thumbs. You know, yeah, I tell Christians, you know, what's the meaning of life? What's the purpose of life? It's, you know, it's like Dan Barker said. It's not a purpose-driven life. It's life-driven purpose. You have life first, and from that you have purposes. And what's the main purpose? Just to survive, just to breathe, just, you know, just to fulfill your biological needs and desires. And if that, like, if we didn't have to eat, if we didn't have to sleep, if we didn't need shelter over our heads, we didn't need clothes on our back, what would we do? We would just twiddle our thumbs. We would go insane. We'd have absolutely nothing to
this
do.
is the reason why trust fund babies often are like the unhappiest people. It's because they have no needs, no goals, it's like all these celebrity kids are so messed up. It's like
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the kids that, you know, come from celebrities, you know, they're spoiled. They don't have to work a day in their lives, and you know, they're miserable. They're drug addicted, or they commit suicide, or or they die in a car crash, or they just or they're just bums. They don't do anything with their lives. Uh, you know, because their needs are taken care of. What's to do? There's nothing to do. And you got fill your time with I don't know, spending a lot of money, or going expensive trips, or whatever the next thrill that comes around is. You need to you just occupy your time with that.
Well, there's always poker too.
Yeah, I mean that's fine, but yeah, I think that's a problem with modern society. I guess 1,000 years ago, you'd be too busy just trying to find your next meal. You don't have the time to think about the meaning of life and so forth. Like Socrates. You're just
all the great philosophers and scientists were very wealthy people because they had the time to think.
Yeah, they had the leisure to sit back and think about.
But then a lot of them went nuts and crazy and.
There's a saying, I think, which is very true, that is for those that feel, life is a tragedy, and for those that think, life is a comedy. I think that makes a lot of sense. If you feel, then like the problem of suffering, problem of evil, is takes a great effect on you. All the suffering and pain we see in the world. But if you're a philosopher and you think about life, life's absurd. It's a comedy. It's a joke. All you do every day is just fulfill your needs, and this goes on and on and on, and then eventually you die. It's like, it's just not a thing. But is there a solution? Well, for us, within 50 years, we won't have to worry about it, right? That's the solution.
Yeah, I'm going to start smoking and drinking heavily at age 70, so I don't live to 100.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. If you're 100 years old and you don't even recognize your family members, and you're pissing and pooping in your Depends, do you want to be alive then? No. And your Social Security and pension starting to run out. It's a burden on your family.
I want. I'm from Canada originally. I want my kids to put me on an ice floe and set me adrift.
Yeah, like the Eskimos. Yeah, but I mean,
we're keeping it too real, I think, right now. We might be depressing all the Christians listening.
Yeah. Well, sometimes with Christians, I'm kind of like you. I'm heavy-handed. I don't know if it works or not, but sometimes I say, are you willing to accept that you're going to be worm food one day? Are you willing to accept that you're going to be forgotten within a couple of generations, if not sooner?
Yeah.
Can you accept that? Can you accept that life's going to come to an end, and the bacteria in your gut is going to start eating away from the inside, and then that's going to set off fumes, and that's going to cause maggots and worms.
But Floyd, our live streams, our YouTube channels will last for eternity as long as Google's alive.
Yeah. I tell you, I think the greatest band in the world is ABBA. ABBA's going to live on forever.
Oh yeah.
They just digitized themselves. They spent $176 million from Industrial Light and Magic to digitize themselves, and they have a new concert now. So Jimmy Page is all gray haired and so forth, and and Jimi Hendrix is dead, and Eddie Van Halen is dead. But ABBA's is like the cockroaches of the music industry. They're just going to live on and on and on.
Anthony, are you there? I'm just.
Oh yeah, I'm here. I don't know if you remember me. We talked, I don't know, like months ago.
I kind of recognize your voice
on prophecy and some other things.
Yeah, can you show your face?
Yeah, it's quite a charming voice.
Can you show your face?
I mean, if you don't. I'd rather not.
Why?
Okay,
go ahead and talk. What do you want to say? Quick.
I can tell you off camera, but anyway, about your you had an objection to the design argument, that like the watchmaker sort of thing. I want to see if I get it right. So you're basically saying that.
Did we lose you?
Watch is designed Oh, can
Yeah,
you?
go ahead.
Oh,
Okay,
no.
watchmaker argument. The watch is designed. It's on the sand. The sand's designed. Everything's designed. There's a design. Here's a design. Everywhere's a design. I got it? It's not going to work, Anthony, until you pay your internet bill. Can we get donations for Anthony so he can get proper internet? Thanks for the donation made by Jim Bob. Floyd, how does arguing against Christianity fulfill your need and purpose to survive? I can answer that on Floyd's behalf because he gets joy, hope, meaning, and purpose from the sadness of others.
No. I was with you until the very end. It's a case of wait a minute, honey. Someone said something wrong on the internet. I'll be right with you.
Yeah.
It's like, I hear, particularly evangelical fundamentalist Christians, make these points. And I said, no, that's wrong. No, that's wrong. That's wrong. And if you learn what scholars have to say, you wouldn't believe it. So I'm just trying to correct them. And I do enjoy this. I've been studying the Bible for decades now. And I enjoy the Bible. I enjoy studying it and so forth. I love debating. I love arguing. It does give me some, purpose in life.
Made by Jim Bob is a guy who's a recent Christian, I think a couple years, and his wife was a Christian. So in order for him to get married and have coitus, he had to convert. And now he uses the precept tag arguments to justify it and help him not think he's stupid. How's that, Jim Bob, as a summary?
I have a lot of videos on my YouTube channel that deal with precept. If anyone wants to learn how
I
to
love
counter
precepts.
that.
Okay, Anthony's back.
It's yeah. I mean, it's it's a way of shutting mouths, right? It's not much of an argument. It's just applying it's applying skepticism to all other worldviews and just asserting your metaphysics.
Alejandro, you better say something good, otherwise you're gone.
Yo, wait, okay. Can I try to re-explain this in just like a whole sentence?
One sentence, go.
Okay. The probability of someone flying if he existed is higher than the probability of them flying if he didn't exist.
I agree. Is that it?
Okay, that's all I was saying.
Again, that's not what I was asking.
Okay.
I was asking, is
What
the
were you asking?
probability of me existing and flying greater than the probability of me existing?
Oh, no, it's just the
Okay,
probability.
so
The probability of you existing.
okay,
is
so we're agreed.
greater.
And just the fact that a book mentions a real person in a real place doesn't mean that particular person in that particular place. It doesn't raise the probability that they fly unaided, right?
Okay.
No, see, you're
I
wavering.
just got your point of the last one. You existing and flying as opposed to you existing and not flying. So okay.
And this was what the other Christian caller was saying. He's saying, well, because the Bible mentions real people and real places, that makes the Bible more likely, or raises his confidence that it's inerrant and perfect, and therefore we can now trust that Jesus walked on water and rose from the dead. And I'm saying, no.
Okay. This is what you just said was a new concept, so I have to process this.
Okay, process it on your own
get
time.
it. Yeah.
Anthony, are you there? I can see you, but I can't hear.
Oh yeah, I'm just a patient caller.
Okay, design argument, go.
So with regard to so your response to the watchmaker argument is basically, well, to the theist, everything's designed, including the sand and the watch and the stars and the trees. But it seems to me that to make a sort of design argument work, all you need to do is to concede that the watch is more designed than the sand. And then they could say, well, you can recognize more specified design.
Yeah, and I've said
in
the exact
things
same
that are more
thing,
random.
Anthony. I've said the exact same thing to people who bring up the design argument, and I gave them that exact advice that don't say design versus not design, say more designed and less designed. So I agree with you.
Oh, okay, cool. Also, just one other thing. I'll be really short. I don't bloviate. I'm a good caller. Anyway, it seems to me that just your question, why did God create it all, could be answered by saying that certain goods just wouldn't exist if God didn't create. So he has reason to create rather than not create. Like God would be good by nature, according to classical theism. He can't choose to sin, but we would be good by choice. Like I have the temptation to steal or not to steal, but God doesn't even have that temptation, doesn't have that option.
Okay, so basically God created because there's some other goods that could come out of it. Let me ask you this question.
Yeah.
Would you rather eat a cheesecake that's just out of the oven, pure, delicious, or would you rather eat a cheesecake that is full of dirt?
The one out of the oven?
Yeah. So the cheesecake out of the oven represents God, and the cheesecake with dirt on it represents God plus his creation. Sure, there's still goodness, but it comes with filth, which is sin. That's my argument that God, can you get better than God alone? And if some Christians say yes, some say no. What do you say?
Yeah, I'm kind of saying that in a sense, they could say yes because God doesn't possess all goods. You know, he only possesses certain.
So that he's not all good, is what you're saying.
He's all good in the sense that he doesn't do anything bad and he doesn't have any imperfections, but God doesn't like persevere in the face of feeling suffering because he doesn't stub his toe, he doesn't get hurt.
I know, but is there a goodness that I have that God doesn't?
Yeah, you have the choice to choose to do good when you have the option to do evil. God doesn't even have the option to do evil.
So you believe God's not free?
He only has the freedom to choose between goods. He doesn't have the freedom to choose between good and evil. You know, so we have certain freedoms.
Oh, so we are better. So you would say we are better than God when it comes to freedom, because we have more choices than God.
They both seem to be, you know, like good things.
So if I love
They're just good
Floyd,
in different ways.
if I love Floyd here, and let's say Floyd's a Christian, he's not, but let's say he is. Is my love better than God's love because God can't choose to not love his child?
I'd say your love is different, and that kind of love wouldn't exist if God didn't create you. So he has reason to create you. I'd say it's different. I wouldn't say yours is better than God's.
But can
God's is better than yours.
Assuming Floyd's a Christian, can God choose not to love his child?
No, but you could.
Yeah.
So
see, isn't that amazing? I could choose. My love is better than God's love because I could choose not to love Floyd, but God can't. He has to love Floyd. Right? Is that what you're saying?
I don't know why. No, I'm not saying it's better. Just take out the word better. I'm saying.
How can it not be better? Because my love is based on free will. I mean, isn't this the Christian spiel you hear all the time that we need free will in order for true love to exist? God's a robot. He has to love Floyd.
Well, he could choose how much to love Floyd. He just can't choose not to love him at all. Is what
Oh,
I'm saying, you know?
this is okay. That's a nice out.
Yeah, so it's a bit more nuanced, you know. Like he has to love him, but he can choose how much to love him. He can choose between good.
Every time you say the word nuance, I'll throw up in my mouth a little.
Well, I mean, you know, that's all I called in for. You know, unless you have questions or something to ask me.
What kind of Christian are you?
Oh well, I consider myself an Aryan. You know?
An Aryan.
Like,
oh, that's dangerous.
Yeah.
Heretic.
Yeah, I am a heretic. You know, but you know, when I read the early church fathers, that seems to be the opinions they lean towards.
So explain to me and the people listening what makes you different than, let's say, Protestant evangelical American.
Oh, well, here's an interesting thing. If you look up recent polls on like the favorite heresies of evangelicals, most of them will agree that Jesus is the first creation of God. But so you look that up. That's pretty interesting. Like Christianity Today has an article on that. But basically, Arians think that only the Father is eternal, omniscient, and omnipotent, but the Son is his first creation, the Logos.
Oh, so you're a Unitarian.
Yeah.
Okay. So the Muslims love you, and the Jews love you.
Oh yeah. Well, Muslims they love me at first, but then when I start talking about the
then you
Quran,
start
they
smoking and
really
drinking in
stop
front of them, right?
Yeah. And I start getting cursed, you know. So.
Are your parents?
I'll talk to Muslims.
What are your parents?
Oh, my dad is a bit of an agnostic, you know, and my mother's a Christian.
What does your mother think of you?
Mm.
Is she proud of you?
Yeah. She's a Unitarian.
Does she love
too.
you freely?
I believe so.
Okay.
It might be a very, very clever act. You know?
I'm just teasing you.
I can't read minds.
Okay, thanks, Anthony.
All right, have a nice day, everyone, and I'll pray for you, even if you don't think it means anything.
Oh, hey, do me a favor. If you pray for me and Floyd, get out a journal and date it and sign it, so we can have record that you actually did pray, and put your expectations, put the probability of your prayer coming true. Yeah, that'd be great.
I wouldn't know how to calculate the probability of you freely choosing to accept the
No?
gospel.
What's the chances do you think a guy like me will return to Christianity? I can put a number on it. You can't put a number on it?
No.
Is it more
if you
or
can,
is it
hear
more than
them.
50% or under 50%? Come on, you got to know that.
I don't know. I mean, you might have a vision of Jesus tonight and then be a Baptist tomorrow. I don't know.
No, you know I don't appreciate visions. It has to be water-soaked napkins lighted on fire or resurrections of the dead.
Yeah, if I can ever resurrect someone, you know, I'll contact you.
See you, Floyd. Thanks for coming on. I'm going to boot you. And I should say revivification, not resurrection, because I know there's separate terms.
Very good. You know a lot of Christian theology.
I know the lingo, yeah. I play the game. There's only one resurrection, a time, and Jesus was the first of the resurrections, the first fruits. But what happened to Lazarus in the cave in the Gospel of John was just a revivification.
Oh, I had a question about religious experience. So what if someone thinks they experience God like vividly, like they like they're certain that God exists, like if they see a giraffe in their backyard, they'd be certain that God exists. Do you think they would be rational in believing in God?
Oh, I hate
even
questions
if they
like
had
this.
Good arguments?
I hate questions like this.
Like even if, I mean, it's important because
no, it's not.
It's how much you value argument.
No, to me, this is like a question begging of neediness. And please say I'm justified. I hate these questions. It's like, please tell me I'm not crazy. Please tell me I'm not crazy. Okay, you're not crazy, okay? Yes, you're justified.
What if they are crazy?
Well, that's a possibility too, right? I mean, this whole idea of, like, did they see it with other people? Did they have any other evidence? Or is it just their word for it?
Well, I don't
like
know.
If like,
you know, for some people,
go ahead.
You know, no, actually, you can go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like, if it happened to me, where I saw something that's really abnormal, I would question my own sanity than say that it actually happened. Now, if there are other people, that helps. If we have any other type of evidence, that greatly helps. But the more rational explanation is that you've gone insane, or you ate something bad, or someone spiked your drink with something. Right? Isn't that the more rational explanation?
Well, I guess that's kind of my question: is why you'd assume that there's just this intrinsic improbability to religious experiences being true. It might just be, you know, God doesn't really care what religion you're part of. He just gives experiences to everybody.
Because they can't all be true. We know that.
Maybe God just doesn't care about the details, you know, as long as you're religious a bit.
God doesn't care about the details. What if someone has a religious experience that says God's a unity, and someone has a religious experience that says God's a trinity? Does this God not care about the details?
He might not. I'm saying it's possible.
But we know that those two experiences that can't both be true, right?
True.
So one experience is false, and one experience can either be true or also false. But they both can't be true.
Yeah, it's, I don't believe it. I'm just saying it seems possible. I mean, it's
anything's
that,
possible. The Magic Kingdom. I hate it when people talk about what's possible. Yeah. Like in reality, like almost anything is possible in our imaginations. But seriously, like if you saw even a giraffe in your backyard, when you depend if you live in America and you're not in a zoo, I mean, you should question your own sanity, right?
I'll concede.
Yeah.
That, yeah. But yeah, people next door are being loud, so I'll get off. But you you have a nice day.
Okay. Take care. I don't know why it bothers me so much when I get those questions of, is a person rational for believing this? Let's just assume everybody on the planet's crazy, okay? Just to make everybody feel better. Oh, you're crazy? Guess what? I am too. Yeah. Actually, Anthony does remind me of a 60s hippie guy. He has that, everybody's spiritual, man. I take a call from Australia? No, all Australians are nuts. Every Australian I've had on my show is crazy. If everybody is crazy, then no one is. Live debate now, Tom Rabbit versus Matt Adams. Who's Matt Adams? Australia doesn't exist. Take a poll, Doug. Another good stream, Doug. You should do these open hangouts more. They're a lot of work, Jerome. I like one-on-one better, I think. These open hangouts, like, I gotta constantly boot people and keep things on topic. And so when can we expect the Floyd versus SJ Daniel debate? Yeah, I'll moderate that. I think SJ likes me. I can see what I can do. SJ, are you here? Do you like me? You like me. Let me prove we're not all crazy. No, the music is ending.